The prologue opens on a serene morning, with birds chirping on a tree branch outside a stately, multi-storied building. Inside, Crown Prince Cecil Glow-Elfaster reveals that for the 6 months since their marriage, every morning has started with the sight of his wife, Bersha Ibel-Elfasta, sleeping soundly beside him. Suddenly, Bersha erupts with a villainous laugh in her sleep, declaring that a first-class villainess will not run from a challenge and demanding a stray cat return her taiyaki at once. Cecil clarifies that his mornings truly begin with both his wife's adorable sleeping face and the strange things she says, surmising she is dreaming of retrieving a snack that is likely no longer hygienic, and he notes how long it has been since he heard her use the word villainous. His thoughts drift back to their past, recalling that ever since they were first engaged, Bersha has been an unusual girl, who at the age of 8 boldly announced that she was a villainess. When they first met, the 10-year-old Cecil and his attendants were utterly confused by her sudden declaration, having no idea what she was talking about. Yet for Cecil, who excelled at everything to the point of finding life dull, her bizarre remark sparked his curiosity and drew him to her. She had explained her belief that their world was an otome game, and she was the villainess, a character whose purpose was to bully a heroine, to unite Cecil with that girl, only to be discarded once her role in the plot was complete. But in reality, Bersha was too kind, pure, and scatterbrained to ever be a proper villainess, a stark contrast to the first-class one she idealistically claimed she would become. Having grown fond of her, Cecil resolved to protect her, working from the shadows to eliminate any chance of her meeting the supposed heroine and setting traps for any potential adversaries. Under his watchful protection, she blossomed into a charming and admired, self-proclaimed villainess. He recalls that it was the self-proclaimed heroine who was ultimately removed from the picture, allowing him and Bersha to forge their own happy ending, and now she works hard by his side as the crown princess. Watching Bersha smile as she dreams of sharing her prize with him, Cecil thinks that ensuring her continued happiness is the simplest task he could ever have. He is amused by the absurdity of her dream, questioning if she truly plans to feed him a snack licked by a stray cat, and decides that despite her good intentions, he will have to refuse the offer. He chuckles to himself, thinking that his wife, Tia, has always found ways to subvert his expectations, and notes that Zeno and Kuro should be arriving any minute. Gazing down at her lovingly, he gently strokes her hair and whispers to the sleeping Tia that he looks forward to spending the day together with her again. An attendant announces that preparations are complete for the journey to the kingdom of Chirby as people bustle around carriages and horses. Cecil asks Tia if the congratulatory gift, the Japanese sake, was loaded correctly, and she assures him she watched it herself. He reflects that this new drink was developed by Tia based on memories of her past life, following a request from Princess Lisolna. His memory flashes back to a time when he noticed Tia seemed troubled and asked her what was wrong. Tia explained that she had wanted to include a sakazuki ceremony in the wedding festivities, but the necessary Japanese sake did not exist in this world. She described the ceremony as the exchanging of 3 cups of a special alcohol, made only in her former country of Japan, to symbolize the new bond between a bride and groom. When Cecil innocently suggested she make the drink herself, Tia became frantic, worrying she would be arrested as brewing alcohol required legal qualifications in her past life. He calmly clarified that no such law exists in their world. With that misunderstanding cleared, Tia enthusiastically declared that she would brew the sake herself for Princess Lisolna's wedding. Cecil recalls that after her proclamation, he didn't see her for a while and wondered how her project was progressing. He soon discovered her rallying a young cat-eared girl, announcing with great vigor that they would begin by preparing rice paddies and sowing the seeds. The prince was privately amused, wondering if she really intended to create the drink entirely from scratch, starting with growing the main ingredient. He found her excitedly preparing to grow various rice strains and had to gently inform her that the harvest would not be ready in time for the wedding journey. Deciding he could not bear to see his wife sad, he kept to himself the additional fact that it was the wrong season for planting rice altogether. To solve the problem, he offered to show her one of his dirty tricks. He led her to a special royal section of the forest where those aware of spirits could ask them to rapidly cultivate plants, leaving Tia amazed and grateful. Cecil then promptly delegated the task of overseeing the spirit-assisted farming to his attendant, Zeno. Tia listed her required ingredients as rice, fresh water, and malted rice, prompting Cecil to motivate Zeno by suggesting that with the new rice, he could make the ultimate inarizushi for Kuro. When Tia vaguely described needing to ferment the bacteria in the rice, Cecil ordered a weary Zeno to find a spirit specializing in plant fermentation. Cecil remembers how, with the aid of the spirits, They successfully grew the rice and quickly learned the process for making rice malt. After much experimentation, they perfected a recipe and produced a large quantity of the drink, which Tia named Japanese sake, after her past life home country, Japan. Although the Sakazuki ceremony was ultimately deemed too immodest for a royal wedding, the couple was still pleased with the unique gift, and Tia hoped to perform the ceremony privately with the crown prince later. Back in the present, as they are about to depart, Bersha is overjoyed to see her father has come to see them off. Her father advises that should she encounter danger, she should simply hide behind the prince, as his presence alone is a formidable deterrent. A lady-in-waiting adds that Bersha should be careful, as there are not many members of her admiration society in foreign lands. Bersha feels like they are treating her like a child as they ask if she packed handkerchiefs and tell her that Miss Cynthia will be her companion on the trip. Another woman entrusts Bersha's care to Miss Cynthia, who confidently accepts the responsibility. Miss and hands Bersha documents on the kingdom of Chirby, suggesting she study them during the journey. Cecil's attention is drawn to Zeno, who is staring intently at something in the crowd. He follows Zeno's gaze and spots a small figure bobbing in the distance. He recognizes the girl as Milma K. Moore, the younger sister of his former informant, who now ostensibly serves as one of Tia's maids while secretly reporting to him. Zeno approaches and explains that Milma, who struggles with being heard, was sent on an errand by Bersha. Cecil muses on Milma's strangely minuscule presence, which he had previously attributed to her quiet voice and plain appearance. He recalls hearing stories of how, as a child, she would hide so well during hide and seek that her friends would forget her and go home, leaving her to return later in tears. Zeno remarks that he noticed her because he grew up with many siblings, and his own younger sister has similar trouble expressing herself. Milma stands nearby, clutching her chest in apparent relief or gratitude. Zeno excuses himself from the prince's side, and Cecil allows him to go. An onlooker quietly comments on how rare it is to see Zeno show concern for anyone besides Tia. Zeno walks over and takes Milma's hand, much to her surprise. Cecil sighs internally, thinking Zeno is a blockhead for not realizing that despite her youthful appearance, Milma is a lady of the same age as Tia. Zeno leads Milma to Bersha, asking for a moment of her time. Milma shyly hands Bersha a box, presenting the umyao she had requested. Bersha explains to Cecil that it's a card game from her past life, perfect for their long carriage ride. Cecil finds the name umyao unusual, noting it sounds like something a cat would say, which makes Tia visibly tense up. The narrative flashes back to Tia pacing while trying to decide on a name for the commissioned card game. In her distraction, she tripped and inadvertently shouted something that sounded like meow. An attendant misheard her cry as umyao and assumed it was the chosen name, leaving Tia mortified at the near miss. The attendant praised the name as wonderful and fitting for her image, preventing Tia from correcting the mistake. When she later explained the situation, Cecil had remarked that he thought the name was cute, just like her, which made her decide to keep it. In the present, Cecil asks if they can play the game during their trip, and Bersha happily agrees to teach him the rules. A young knight, Valdo, reports that the escorts are ready, explaining that the captain was unavailable and asked him to deliver the message instead. Cecil inwardly deduces the captain is using the rookie as a human shield, likely too afraid to face him after the security plans he submitted were rejected, just as the arrival of the king and queen is announced. The king and queen of Alfasta make their grand entrance. Cecil instructs the group that they will depart in earnest after they have said their final goodbyes. The entire royal entourage stands before the castle's open gates, prepared to set off for the kingdom of Chirby. A long procession of horse-drawn carriages departs from a crowded city square. Aboard the carriage, Cecil reflects on their departure from the royal capital, accompanied by Tia, her lady-in-waiting Miss Cynthia, her maid Milma, his aide Courtgain, and his escort Valdo. As soon as they have a moment to themselves, Tia beams and eagerly takes out a box containing her prepared entertainment. She presents the card game umyao with a flourish. Tia explains that a crucial part of the game is shouting umyao. When a player has only one card left, a rule Cecil privately thinks would be quite embarrassing for him to say out loud. During a later game, a frustrated Zeno is forced to declare umyao, with no shame, much to Cecil's amusement. The prince continues to watch Zeno's losing streak with a smirk. Zeno accuses His Highness of deliberately targeting him, but Cecil playfully dismisses the claim, suggesting Zeno simply lacks talent for games. Several days later, their carriage arrives at the coastal city of Riemann, and Tia gasps in awe at her first sight of the sea. Her immediate plans for a portside stroll and a seafood meal are dashed when Cecil explains they must stay put and prepare for the next leg of their journey by boat. Tia's excitement instantly turns to despair at the news. Cecil sympathizes with her disappointment but knows that allowing the crown prince and princess to wander a busy town is simply out of the question. To his utter astonishment, however, he soon finds her happily accepting a skewer of food from a local while waving from the carriage window. He pieces together the turn of events. As they were en route to their hotel, the citizens of Riemann began offering food to the princess, bypassing the perimeters set by the royal escort and the local lord's troops. The townsfolk resorted to forcing their food upon the guards, who, left with no other choice, accepted the offerings on the royals' behalf. After the food was checked for poison, samples were brought to the carriage and Tia, captivated by the delicious aroma, couldn't help but dig in. Once she took her first bite and exclaimed how wonderful it was, she became an unstoppable force, eagerly trying everything offered. She happily encourages Prince Cecil to try a particularly delicious piece, and he muses that this is less like sampling restaurants and more like the restaurants coming directly to them. Deciding to embrace the situation, he thinks to himself, in for a penny, in for a pound. He leans in and takes a bite of the food she offers. He agrees that it's quite good, and as the crowd outside cheers at their public display of affection, he finds it's not so bad to let the people enjoy seeing them like this. A nearby Zeno grumbles about the newlyweds getting carried away. When Tia offers him another item, Cecil notices Courtgain's bitter expression in the crowd and decides it's time to pull back. After tasting a spicy dish, he looks at Tia and declares it, "How sweet." She is confused, but he leans in close and clarifies that he was speaking not of the food, but of sharing the moment with her. From the corner, the spirit Kuro makes a sound of disgust. Tia blushes furiously as Courtgain continues to watch them from outside the carriage. Suddenly, Courtgain strides purposefully into the crowd of onlookers. He quickly locates the timid maid, Milma, who has been separated from the group and lost in the throng. Cecil finds it curious that Milma got lost while the other maids, wearing identical uniforms, had no issue, and notes Courtgain's particular skill in always being able to find her. Milma gazes up at Courtgain with a look of pure adoration. Watching the scene unfold, Tia declares with certainty that it must be love, a sentiment Cecil readily agrees with. Cecil suspects Milma holds an unrequited love for Courtgain, who himself once had feelings for Tia, and decides it is best to warn Tia not to get involved in any matchmaking schemes. Tia protests that she only wants her sort of brother to be happy, but Cecil gently points out that it would be awkward for Courtgain to discuss his love life with her. She concedes and agrees to simply watch over them from the shadows, a decision Cecil approves of, knowing the chaos her matchmaking can cause. 5 days later, their journey continues smoothly across the sea. Cecil feels at ease, confident that with Zeno, a descendant of the Spirit King, and Kuro, a defensive magic expert, they are safe from any maritime threats. His only worry is Tia, who has been noticeably melancholic for the past day. She finally admits her problem. She has come to realize she prefers viewing the sea from the shore. She feels bored and restless from the lack of exercise, and Cecil agrees that being stuck on a boat offers limited scenery and activity. He then remembers the collection of documents Miss Anne had prepared, suggesting it as a way to kill time, and Tia's spirits lift immediately. Cecil decides that while she reads, he will take the opportunity to look over some reports from Courtgain. As they make their way to the room, Miss Cynthia offers to have tea ready for them on deck when they finish, while Valdo naively offers to help Tia read, earning a sharp remark from Cynthia. Valdo is visibly wounded by her jab at his intelligence. Cynthia then sweetly asks Sir Valdo to stand guard outside the room, and Cecil inwardly revises his opinion, thinking the two are a perfect match after all. With their companions occupied, Cecil suggests they take their time reading the documents, just the two of them. He then dryly adds that even when they are alone, their ever-present spirits are still with them. Tia asks what he is reading, and upon seeing the documents are filled with complex mathematics for a potential trade deal, she looks intimidated. Not wanting to worry her, he keeps the details to himself. He assures her that she doesn't need to worry about his documents and that he will read Miss Anne's materials alongside his own. Tia is shocked that he plans to read both sets of documents at the same time, but he explains he is simply a very fast reader. He casually states that he can finish his own reading in the free time he'll have while waiting for her to finish hers. Tia and Kuro are thoroughly impressed by his ability, and Cecil finds that, for some reason, her praise makes him truly happy. He ponders this mysterious feeling as they settle in to begin their reading. Upon finishing the last page, Tia is thrilled with how much she has learned and declares they must buy Miss and many souvenirs as thanks. Cecil agrees, noting the materials were incredibly useful, filled with details on Chirby's etiquette and customs specifically tailored to help Tia navigate their society. He proposes a quick review before they go for tea, and Tia agrees with a quirky, out-of-place blacksmithing idiom that leaves him momentarily confused. He decides to start the review by asking about the formation of the Kingdom of Chirby. Tia beams and shouts, "Pirates!" An answer Cecil concedes is technically correct but missing a few key details. He elaborates that while Chirby was founded by pirates, its main industries are now shipping and fishing, though its pirate past is still evident in its powerful navy and unique flag. Tia adds that the country's history led to its delicate laws of succession, noting that Princess Lisolna's husband-to-be, Prince Araith, is the current king's brother, not his son. This law was born from a time when it was unthinkable for a child without power to lead, so a direct line of inheritance was not established. As a result, until the king's legitimate son comes of age, his younger brother temporarily holds the title of crown prince. A diagram illustrates that Prince Araith is the current heir, but his position is provisional. Once the king's son turns 20, their roles will reverse, and Araith will no longer be in the line of succession. Tia relays that Princess Lisolna described Prince Araith as a calm and gentle person who is not bothered by this arrangement, having been raised to accept it as tradition. Cecil, however, is skeptical, believing from reports that Araith is a sharp and capable man who has likely made ruthless decisions to achieve success in his ventures. His primary hope is that power is not the ultimate prize Prince Araith values. He calmly resolves that if things do take a turn for the worse, he will simply make the necessary arrangements behind the scenes to protect Princess Lisolna. He clarifies that he is not particularly interested in the politics but is motivated by the fact that Tia would be heartbroken if her friend were to suffer. Changing the subject, Tia suggests they make a game out of reviewing the important figures they are to meet, using their portraits. Cecil agrees to her game, though he privately thinks it unnecessary as he can usually remember a name and face after seeing it just once. He finds, however, that the game is quite fun, not because of the challenge, but because it gives him a chance to simply observe Tia as she struggles to recall the names. Deep in thought, Tia becomes frustrated and turns to ask the spirit Kuro for the answer, a completely futile effort. When Kuro predictably fails to remember, Tia moves on to the next portrait. Kuro makes a circle gesture with her hands, but Tia doesn't understand. Cecil has to intervene, gently reminding Tia that it's unreasonable to expect Kuro to communicate a person's name without speaking. He then deciphers Kuro's gestures, explaining that she was likely indicating which people were good to associate with, circle, and which should be avoided, cross, based on her reactions when they first reviewed the list. Tia is amazed at Kuro's intelligence and pets her affectionately, vowing to do her best to keep up. With the review complete, Cecil declares it is time to join Miss Cynthia on deck for tea. Tia spends the next several days studying intently, finally committing all of Miss Anne's materials to memory just 2 days before their arrival, which allows them to happily enjoy the remainder of their sea voyage together. As the shores of the Kingdom of Chirby come into view, Cecil reflects that while reports suggest no major concerns, he must remain vigilant for Tia's sake. He knows that any country is a whirlpool of clashing plots and that it would be ludicrous to assume there are no dangers at all. He can only hope that, in the end, his concerns prove to be unfounded. As their journey nears its end, Tia excitedly points out the royal palace of the Kingdom of Chirby. She marvels at how big it is, prompting Cecil to gently remind her that their own palace in Alfasta is twice the size. He notes the astonishing number of people and carriages on the road, all gathering to celebrate the wedding. Tia expresses her excitement at being able to talk with Princess Lisolna face-to-face again, as they have only been able to exchange letters since Cecil and Tia's own wedding. Cecil's mind drifts back to that time, remembering that Princess Lisolna had actually stayed in Alfasta for a while after their wedding. In a flashback, an overjoyed Tia announces that Princess Lisolna was so impressed by their wedding ceremony that she invited her for a personal tea to discuss it. Recalling that Lisolna was the one who caught the bouquet, Cecil asked if he could join them to say hello, and Tia happily confirmed the meeting for the following afternoon. He reflects that while it is natural for royals to build connections, he feels a personal need to assess anyone who gets too close to Tia. The next day, Tia greets Princess Lisolna with overwhelming enthusiasm, rushing forward to grab her hands. Cecil gently pulls his wife back, chiding her for being so forward and startling the princess. Princess Lisolna, however, tells him that it is quite all right. She then formally introduces herself as Lisolna Yumierb and once again congratulates them on their marriage. Lisolna turns to Cecil with a wry smile, asking if it is a custom in Alfasta for husbands to crash their wives' tea parties. Cecil smoothly replies that he was merely there to thank her for attending their wedding. The princess accepts his thanks on behalf of her country, Yumiurb, and confirms that her stay in Alfasta has been wonderful. Satisfied with the exchange, Cecil tells Tia he will leave them to enjoy their tea. As he turns to leave, Lisolna gives him a sharp look, questioning if his greeting was merely an excuse to see his wife off before adding that she is happy to be used to help their love grow. Cecil openly declares that he treasures his wife above all else, a comment that makes Tia blush deeply. After Lisolna departs, Cecil concludes that while she understands the veiled words of royalty, her true feelings are written all over her face, making her ill-suited for diplomacy. He muses that royals from countries with intense power struggles often grow up to be mistrustful and egotistical as a means of survival. He feels fortunate that his own kingdom of Alfasta is peaceful, with a well-ruling father and a younger brother who has no ambition to contest the throne. At the time, he worried that Tia would not be able to get along with such a seemingly difficult person. His worries, however, prove unfounded when Tia later announces that she and Princess Lisolna have made plans to walk in the gardens together the next day. Though Cecil is baffled as to how Tia managed to win the princess over, he accepts it as a good thing when Tia happily makes even more plans, including a tea party she will organize. Over the following days, Tia keeps him updated on her blossoming friendship with Lisolna, including a day spent looking at dresses together. Another day is spent on a sightseeing tour of Alfasta's famous landmarks. On yet another day, they go shopping for souvenirs for the princess to take home. Cecil begins to feel that their friendship is developing a bit too quickly and grows concerned that Tia might not see through a potential plot by the princess. He decides to check on the situation himself, asking Tia about her plans for the next day, which involve having tea with Lisolna in the garden. When he asks to join them, an ecstatic Tia immediately agrees, promising to let Lisolna know he will be coming. He observes them from a distance, still puzzled by their dramatic shift from a tense first meeting to a warm and friendly rapport. The next day, he finds them chatting amiably and greets Lisolna, who is surprised but welcoming. The two princesses pay him little mind, immediately picking up their animated conversation where they left off. Later, Cecil asks the ladies-in-waiting, Miss Cynthia and Miss Silica, for an explanation. They tell him that Miss Bersha was just her usual self, and with every meeting, Princess Lisolna became progressively friendlier. The change is so profound that even Princess Lisolna's own handmaidens from Yumiurb are thanking them daily, relieved that their mistress has become so kind lately. Cecil's aide, Zeno, dryly comments that after managing to fix someone as difficult as the prince, befriending Princess Lisolna must have been a walk in the park for Lady Bersha. Though Zeno's point is valid, Cecil is annoyed by his impertinence and threatens to change all his meals to unseasoned vegetables. Cecil's flashback ends as he remembers that after Lisolna returned home, she and Tia grew even closer, constantly exchanging letters. Back in the present, as their carriage proceeds through Chirby, Tia points out another large building in the distance. As she gets a better look, a strange feeling of familiarity washes over her, though she cannot place why. Cecil sits silently, holding a small ornate object in his hands. He quickly pens a note and instructs his escort to pass it along to Court Gain. He tells his aide to investigate the building and then turns to Tia, reminding her that she had also found Princess Lisolna's name to be strangely familiar. Tia agrees, voicing an uneasy feeling that they are missing a crucial piece of the puzzle. Cecil cautiously asks if this sense of familiarity could be related to the Otome game from her past life. Tia shuts down the possibility immediately and with absolute certainty, stating that she loved that game too much to be mistaken. With fiery determination, she insists that she played the game repeatedly in search of a secret ending for Prince Cecil's route, so she can guarantee this is not part of it. When Cecil then posits the theory of a sequel that she might not have played, Tia is equally adamant that this is impossible, declaring she would have risen from her grave to play a sequel if one had been released. He finds it a relief that, as far as Tia is aware, no sequel ever existed. Tia cheerfully tells him not to worry, brushing off her feelings as just her imagination. Cecil thinks to himself that the only thing he understands for certain is that his wife is extremely over-optimistic. He resolves to enjoy his time with the ever-entertaining Tia for now, confident that the truth will reveal itself in due time. A man with a hearty laugh welcomes the two travelers, thanking them for coming a long way to help with his brother's wedding. The narrative clarifies that upon arriving at the royal palace, Cecil and Tia were immediately granted an audience with the King of Chirby, a sign they were being treated as honored guests. The king remarks to his prime minister that it's kind of the crown princess to lend her help to her friend, Princess Lisolna, though there's more to it than that. Cecil's keen eye catches a nuance in the king's expression, sensing that something is not quite right. As royalty, he is attuned to being assessed and recognizes the king's shrewd gaze, which is hidden behind a jovial personality similar to Valdo's, but far more cunning. He understands this meeting is not a simple greeting but a deliberate evaluation of Alfasta's future ruler, and he knows he must carefully craft his response to avoid leaving a poor impression. The king mentions he had been worried they would never find a fiancé for his meek and quiet younger brother, Araith, but Cecil counters, suggesting Araith was merely hiding his hand before casting his net, like a wise fisherman. Cecil's veiled comment, implying Araith was being strategic, catches the king off guard. The king recovers with a booming laugh, acknowledging that such strategies exist, and Cecil confirms he is quite sure of it. After the audience, Tia expresses her relief, saying she is glad that Princess Lisolna's future father-in-law seems like such a nice man. Cecil internally questions her assessment, noting that near the end of their conversation, the king had stopped looking at him entirely, instead exchanging smiles only with Tia, before their thoughts are interrupted by an approaching figure. Princess Lisolna rushes toward them, overjoyed to see Princess Berkshire again. As the two friends embrace warmly, Cecil reflects that while royal meetings are typically formal affairs, he has no intention of stepping in when his wife looks this happy. He then notices a man standing quietly behind the two princesses. Princess Lisolna, flustered, apologizes for her excitement and realizes she should have made introductions first. She introduces her husband-to-be, His Highness Crown Prince Araith Chirby, who sincerely thanks Cecil and Berkshire for their help in organizing the wedding ceremony. Prince Araith then introduces the other members of the royal family present. The first prince, Lamtak, the second prince, Islak, and Islaka's fiancée, June, the daughter of Count Silkona. They all express that it is an honor and a pleasure to make the acquaintance of the royal couple from the great kingdom of Alfasta. Cecil, however, observes first Prince Lamtak with a critical eye, noting that despite his reverent words, his eyes hold a dagger-like intensity, and he was clearly annoyed at not being introduced immediately after Araith. With a pleasant smile, Cecil states that since they will be staying for a while, it would be best for everyone to get along. He had intended his words to carry a subtle threat, that their amicability was temporary, and notes with satisfaction that only Prince Araith seems to have understood the implication. He is startled, however, when he sees Tia flinch, wondering if she, too, had somehow deciphered his veiled meaning. He quickly realizes she isn't looking at the hostile Prince Lamtak, but rather at second Prince Islak and his fiancée, Miss June. He gently asks what's wrong, and Tia gasps, her eyes wide with a sudden, shocking realization. "I just realized," she exclaims, to which Cecil calmly replies that he has realized as well. Tia blurts out that she has just realized what a picture-perfect couple in love Crown Prince Araith and Princess Lisolna are, a comment that startles the other royals. Cecil inwardly sighs with relief, having successfully stopped Tia from saying whatever she was truly about to reveal by redirecting her outburst. He quickly feigns concern, noting that Tia looks a little pale and asking if she is tired from their long journey. Prince Araith accepts the excuse without question, saying they should not keep her when she is exhausted. A worried Princess Lisolna urges Tia to rest, and Cecil politely thanks them for their consideration. Placing a supportive arm around Tia, Cecil assures them she will be as right as rain by tomorrow and can then have plenty of fun catching up with Princess Lisolna. Prince Araith then suggests that he and Cecil should join them for tea the following day to talk. Cecil agrees it's an excellent idea, and Lisolna turns to ask Tia what she thinks. A flustered Tia agrees, and Lisolna beams, saying she is excited to hear the story of how Cecil and Tia fell in love. With plans set for the next day, the other royals take their leave. Guards stand watch outside the doors to Cecil and Tia's private chambers. Once they are finally alone, Tia turns to Cecil and apologizes for her outburst, admitting she now understands he was just trying to stop her from saying something unnecessary. With a look of fierce determination, she then declares that she must help save Princess Lisolna. Tia dramatically declares that she finally remembers the truth about her friend. Princess Lisolna is the villainess from a novel she read in her previous life. Cecil asks a series of clarifying questions. If this novel is related to the Otome game, and if they themselves feature in the story, to which Tia firmly replies that it is completely unrelated and they do not appear at all. He feels a wave of relief, realizing that this means they are complete outsiders to this new plot and will not be bound by its events. This simplifies their situation considerably. He concludes that all they need to do is offer support from the sidelines and can easily extract themselves if things become too complicated, then asks Tia to describe the story. Tia hesitates to answer. She admits, to Cecil's surprise, that she doesn't actually remember the details of the story very well. She explains that she only bought the novel because the Otome game she loved was going through a period with no updates, and she was suffering from Cecil ennui. A character on the novel's cover looked similar to him. Cecil internally processes this, musing that she was drawn to a character who looked like him, yet was still, in a way, attracted to someone else. He playfully asks if she is telling him about an affair, which Tia vehemently denies, insisting that he is her one and only. He gently asks her to share what she can recall. She explains that she got bored and started skimming the book because the Cecil-like character was a minor, shadowy figure who barely appeared. Cecil listens patiently to her fragmented account, concluding that while it's like being handed pieces of an incomplete puzzle, he understands the broad strokes. The novel's plot concerns the romance between childhood friends Prince Islak and Miss June. Princess Lisolna enters the story as Islaka's fiancée and, envious of their love and resentful of her husband's disinterest, tries to tear them apart. Eventually, her plot to harm Miss June is discovered, leading to her being imprisoned for life, which allows the two lovers to finally be together in a happy ending. Tia apologizes for only remembering the summary. Cecil notes the lack of specific details will make it hard to act, but Tia declares that as long as they can ensure Princess Lisolna has a happy married life with her husband and doesn't become a villainess, that will be enough. With renewed determination, she announces her grand plan. She will play the part of a stand-in villainess for Princess Lisolna's sake. Cecil is momentarily stunned into silence by this unexpected leap in logic. He cannot fathom how she reached that conclusion from their conversation, but Tia, as a veteran villainess, is confident that everything will be fine once she fills the vacant position. She insists that the role of Princess Lisolna is key to the novel's plot, dismissing Cecil's simpler suggestion to just focus on ensuring Lisolna and Araith are happy together. To explain her reasoning, Tia begins frantically scribbling on a piece of paper. She slams the paper down, declaring that what the lovers need is a barrier in the way of love, but she has smeared ink all over her hand in the process, which Cecil then gently wipes clean. Tia explains that in the novel, Islak and June only realize their true feelings for each other after Lisolna appeared as an obstacle, so a similar plot development is needed to bring the two of them closer. Cecil argues against this logic, pointing out that many couples fall in love without needing a barrier to overcome, and if the two already have feelings for each other, Lisolna's actions shouldn't matter. He understands her concern, however. She's worried that if this crucial barrier from the novel disappears, so too will the happy ending for the main couple. He resigns himself to her plan, respecting her determination to help others, even though his relief at being an outsider was short-lived and his bad premonition has come true. Now fully committed, he asks for the details of her plan. Tia declares that there are two things that need to be done. First, she must do everything she can to strengthen the relationship between Lisolna and Araith, as she has heard they are already fond of each other. She recalls that in the novel, the villainess's relationship with her husband fell apart right after their wedding because she always acted cold toward him, despite her feelings. Cecil speculates this could have been an act by Prince Araith to hide his true colors, or simply the result of pre-wedding stress, though he notes that he and Tia had no such problems. Tia explains that was because Cecil handled all their wedding preparations himself before she even had time to notice, leaving her with nothing to stress over. She brings up the concept of marriage blues, the anxiety people feel before a major life-changing event like marriage. Cecil asks if she experienced this, but she says she didn't have time to be anxious because he took care of everything, before quickly getting them back on topic. Tia resolves to do her best to soothe any of Princess Lisolna's worries to ensure she has peace of mind before the wedding. Second, she needs to help foster the relationship between Lisolna and Araith, and for that, she has already put a plan into operation. Double date. She explains that a double date, where two couples go out together, is a great way to ease tension, get to know one another, and have fun. Cecil teases her, asking if this is something she did often in her previous world. A flustered Tia admits she wasn't very popular and only went on one such outing as part of a matchmaking attempt by a friend. Cecil internally notes she was likely as dense in her past life as she is now. He smiles and points out that tomorrow's tea will be her first real double date then. Tia eagerly asks if he will help her with the plan, and Cecil promises to give it his all, though he mentally rephrases his commitment as giving loving Tia his all. With a plan for Lisolna and Araith set, Tia moves on to her second objective, creating a barrier for the love between Prince Islak and Lady June. She openly wonders what she can do to get between the two of them. Cecil suggests a dark and elaborate plan involving destroying Miss June's family vineyards, driving them into financial ruin, and forcing them to consult a shady moneylender, but Tia immediately tells him to stop. He claims he was only joking and then suggests a more expedient method, exposing common crimes committed by the nobility, which would land them in prison, before admitting that was a joke too. Tia insists on handling it herself using her villainous skills, to avoid hurting anyone else's reputation. Cecil then jokingly suggests she could seduce Prince Islak, but immediately forbids her from actually doing it. He agrees to her taking the lead but tells her to let him know the details of her strategy in advance so he can help where needed. When she asks what parts he needs to know about, he clarifies that he needs to know about everything. He explains that he wants to know everything when it comes to her plans and actions. A blushing and flustered Tia agrees to his terms. Cecil leans back, resolved, since there is no turning back, he will enjoy watching whatever hijinks his wife gets up to, all while keeping her safety his top priority and being ready to nip any real issues in the bud. An attendant knocks on the door, announcing himself to Prince Cecil. Courtgain enters, explaining he has come to deliver the report Cecil requested earlier that day about the mysterious building. The report confirms the building is the prestigious Khan Academy, the most important school in the country. Prince Islak and Miss June are first-year students in the advanced course, while Prince Lamtak is in his senior year. Cecil surmises that since novels in Tia's previous life often had illustrations, she must have seen a depiction of the school's entrance, which explains why she remembers the building but not the plot details. He instructs Courtgain to continue investigating the academy and to also look into the people surrounding both Prince Islak and Miss June. As an additional instruction, he asks Courtgain to take Milma along with him so that she can learn from his work, a request that makes the aide flinch. Cecil reflects that although Courtgain knows Milma's sister was an errand girl, and that Milma herself is an agent, he likely just sees her as a worrisome subordinate, as the two have never actually worked together. He tells Courtgain that Milma's natural stealth will be useful for gathering information in places a man cannot enter, though he privately admits this is just an excuse to nudge his aide's romantic attention away from Tia. He officially leaves Milma in Courtgain's care, and the aide accepts the assignment before taking his leave. The next day, Cecil muses that he lacks enough information to predict what will happen next and resolves to simply see what tomorrow brings. He enters a room to check on Tia, only to find her chugging a mysterious green fluid from a glass. Tia turns to him, full of energy, and declares she is all ready for the day, having consumed her special, nutritional drink, for an extra boost. As Milma stealthily passes him the recipe for the concoction, Cecil wonders what on earth his wife has put in it. Tia then announces she has also prepared a secret weapon for today. She strikes a dramatic pose, revealing an elaborate hairstyle with her hair fashioned into multiple large drills. She attempts to stand up to show off her full ensemble but immediately loses her balance and collapses back onto the sofa. A concerned Miss Cynthia rushes to her side, offering a hand to help her up as Tia insists she can stand this time. With Cynthia's assistance, she finally manages to get to her feet and proudly presents herself to the prince. She reveals her secret weapon, hyper-high heels, which she explains are designed to increase her offensive power, much to Cecil's confusion. As she boasts about her new footwear, she once again loses her balance and topples forward, prompting Cecil to shout and lunge to catch her. He catches her safely in his arms and asks if wearing such impractical shoes won't just cause her to fall down. She confirms that falling down is precisely the idea. He asks her to explain further, and Tia is surprised that even he, who usually understands her, cannot grasp her plan. Cecil glances at her maids, who are already in their familiar, silently watching over her mode, and assumes they are just as clueless as he is. Tia explains that her plan is to get Princess Lisolna and Prince Aretha's hearts racing during their double date, and the high heels are an essential tool for this mission. Her grand strategy is to pretend to fall over and push Princess Lisolna into Prince Aretha's arms, creating a classic romantic moment. Cecil understands her intention but privately thinks the heels are an unnecessary prop for a simple pretend fall. He holds her close and asks if she wants the other couple to experience the same lovey-dovey feeling that the two of them have right now. A flustered Tia tries to push away from his embrace, saying he can let her go now. He pulls her back, suggesting that since they are going to the tea party together, he should escort her just like this. She explains that the dazzling high heels are a mark of pride for a first-class villainess, which is why she personally had them made. Cecil makes her promise not to wear them if she can't walk, as it would be a disaster if she truly hurt herself. Just as they are about to leave for the tea party, Tia tells him to wait, announcing that her feet have completely cramped up. He offers to lift her up for a while, and though she is flustered by the suggestion, she agrees it might be for the best. As he carries her, he spots Miss Cynthia smiling knowingly in the background and makes a mental note to get Tia a pair of comfortable shoes for the walk back. He then sees Milma approaching, carrying a box that looks to be just the right size for a pair of shoes. He turns to Miss Cynthia and praises her for being as excellent and thorough as ever. They arrive at the garden, where Prince Araith and Princess Lisolna are already waiting to greet them. Cecil glances down at Tia's feet, noticing that she is standing perfectly fine in her heels now, and wonders if she has gotten used to them or if she's simply okay when standing still. He gestures toward the table and suggests they all sit down. Prince Araith remarks on how close Cecil and Tia seem to be, and Cecil smiles, replying that they are newlyweds, after all. As they are led to a seated tea party table, Tia's face falls into an expression of pure, unadulterated despair. Cecil smirks, realizing that she has just understood her grand plan involving the hyper-high heels is completely useless at a seated event. He feels a little sorry for her predicament but is mostly relieved that this turn of events means she won't get hurt trying to execute her plan. However, the situation takes another unexpected turn as Princess Lisolna launches a conversational offensive, bombarding a stunned Tia with questions and suggestions about the wedding plans. As Tia struggles to keep up, Cecil watches from the side, wondering what he should do about this new development. He reflects on how the afternoon has progressed. The conversation between Princess Lisolna and Prince Araith was stiff and awkward, with her giving short replies and him unable to contribute to topics like dresses and cakes. Frustrated, the princess had eventually declared the gentleman useless and turned her full attention to Tia, leaving Cecil and Araith to simply watch them talk. Left to their own devices, the two princes make small talk, with Araith complimenting Tia's unique and creative ideas for the wedding. Araith then comments on how close Cecil and Tia must be for him to use her nickname, adding with a hint of melancholy that he is quite envious. Cecil explains that they have known each other since they were young, which Araith recalls hearing about their early engagement. Cecil elaborates that while they weren't always together, the time they spent learning about each other was precious, as it was when he learned to love her from the bottom of his heart. He tells Araith that it is not the amount of time spent together that determines a good couple, but whether destiny brings them together. He points out that Araith and Lisolna, despite their short acquaintance and his delicate political position, both agree to the match against dissenting voices, which is enough to clear the hurdle of destiny. Araith seems to ponder this, and Cecil adds that while he and Tia have a shared past to look back on, Araith and Lisolna have a rich expanse of new experiences to look forward to together. Prince Araith abruptly cuts the conversation short, saying they should stop talking about it for now. At that moment, Tia, seemingly impatient with the lack of progress, suddenly declares that their gathering is meant to be a double date for two couples in love. A flustered Princess Lisolna and a surprised Prince Araith both stammer, denying that they are a couple in love. Lisolna clarifies forcefully that theirs is a political engagement. Cecil notes that even if her statement is technically true, hearing it so bluntly from your partner on the eve of your wedding must leave one with complicated feelings, and Prince Araith looks displeased. Forgetting all subtlety, Tia begins to quote Lisolna's own love-filled letters back to her, questioning who wrote about feeling that meeting Prince Araith was destiny. A heavy, awkward silence falls over the table. Tia continues her tirade, reminding Lisolna of how she wrote that she gets nervous and has to act cold to keep her cool around the prince. Cecil leans in and whispers a sharp reminder to Tia, asking if she has forgotten what happened with Miss Silica and Nelt already. Tia gasps, panicking as she realizes her usual signal giver, Miss Silica, isn't there to stop her from talking too much. Cecil watches Princess Lisolna, who has become frozen stiff, and decides he will have to report this incident to Miss Silica later. Lisolna slowly, mechanically turns her head with a creak to look at Prince Araith. Cecil notes that Tia seems to have cleared up the misunderstanding through sheer blunt force, but he is sure Prince Araith must be at a loss as to what to do with this revelation. Prince Araith stands and calls Tia to come to him. She wobbles unsteadily in her high heels. She loses her balance completely and cries out. Prince Araith catches her in a sudden, firm hug. Mortified, Tia apologizes, blaming her heels, while Cecil internally remarks that the hyper-high heels were useful after all. He then whispers to Tia, suggesting that it's unfair to leave Princess Lisolna embarrassed all by herself. He continues, proposing that as her advisor on love, Tia should lead by example to show her how to get along with Prince Araith. A flustered Lisolna protests from the table, declaring there is no way she could imitate such shameless behavior. Cecil smiles, pleased, and points out that Prince Araith seems to be in complete agreement with his plan to use them as an example. He then asks if they should continue their tea party in this state, with him holding Tia in his lap. On the third day of their visit to the kingdom of Chirby, Prince Cecil and Tia had separate schedules. Princess Lisolna and her party were occupied with official greetings, and Tia, due to her involvement with the wedding, had to attend a preparations meeting before heading off on her own. Cecil, for his part, was busy with his own meetings. He met with various members of Chirby's royalty and nobility, as well as merchants who were eager to present business proposals and establish a connection with his nation of Alfasta. He sits at his desk, letting out a weary sigh after his long day of work as an aide pours him a drink. While he found the merchants' ideas interesting, the blustering of the local nobles was as boring as it is anywhere. His attention then turned to a dinner party invitation he had received from the first prince, Lamtak. His aide voices Cecil's own political concerns. Since Lady Bersha is on good terms with Princess Lisolna, who is marrying the current Crown Prince Araith, forming a connection with the rival prince Lamtak might be a bad idea. Cecil inwardly agrees that although Lamtak will likely be the next crown prince, he hadn't made a particularly good impression. He reasons, however, that since Prince Araith fully intends to peacefully relinquish his position once Lamtak comes of age, and their rivalry hasn't yet escalated into open hostility, it shouldn't be a significant problem to form a connection with him. Considering the possibility of a future conflict between the two, Cecil decides it is in his best interest to accept the invitation. He also admits to himself that he is curious about the novel from Tia's past life and wants to learn more. His aide correctly identifies the novel in question as the love story between Prince Islak and Miss June. Cecil thinks that getting to know the older brother, Lamtak, is a good place to start his investigation, but resolves that he should ask Tia for her opinion first. Cecil muses that he has a feeling Tia will simply react with glee, saying how nice it is to be invited and that they should go. His aide smiles, confessing that he was thinking the exact same thing. Just as he realizes Tia should have returned from her meeting by now and wonders if something happened, he hears the thumping of approaching footsteps. The door is suddenly thrown open with a loud bang. Tia bursts into the room, calling out for Prince Cecil and announcing that she has gone and done it. Cecil calmly asks what is wrong, noting that her wedding planning meeting should be over. He glances at a perfectly composed Miss Cynthia and presumes that Tia is simply in a hurry and not in any actual trouble. Tia confirms her meeting had ended and this happened afterward. Suggesting she must be tired after her meeting, he invites her to sit for tea to calm down. He also asks Miss Cynthia to stay, knowing he will need her account to make sense of whatever story Tia is about to tell. After they have settled with their tea, Cecil finally asks her what happened. Tia explains that on her way back, she happened to run into Miss June, who was at the palace to meet with Prince Islak. Cecil silently reflects that it isn't strange for them to meet by chance, as their suites in the palace are likely not far apart. She says that upon seeing Miss June, she thought to herself that this was her chance to be a stand-in villainess. Cecil finds this thought to be very typical of Tia. To start, she explains, she stood in Lady June's way, intending to act as a barrier to her love. Cecil asks if the plan failed, but Tia insists it was a stunning success. This puzzles Cecil, who wonders why she is so nervous if everything went well. He thinks to himself that as someone of higher social standing, Tia wouldn't need a pretense just to speak with Miss June. He then ventures a guess that she couldn't think of a sufficiently villainous topic for their conversation. Tia confirms this, admitting the opportunity arose so suddenly that she acted on impatient impulse. So, at a loss for words, she simply blurted out a challenge. If you want to pass through here, you'll have to defeat me first. She then realized it would be wrong to use force to stop her, which makes Cecil internally question why she was so confident she would win a physical fight in the first place. Things quickly became peaceful as they decided to play rock paper scissors instead. To prolong the encounter, Tia added the "now look over there" rule she plays with the children at the orphanage and made the match a 1st to 10 contest. Cecil notes that if her goal was to hold Miss June up for a while, then the game sounds like a success. Tia wails that it wasn't supposed to go like that for a first-class villainess. She hides her face in her hands, calling herself an idiot, while Cecil thinks to himself that it's not unusual for her plans to end up this way. He comforts her by stating that it's quite normal for nobles to enjoy little games to pass the time. Tia's spirits are immediately lifted, and she excitedly agrees, saying that even the game from her past life had mini-games between scenes. Tia adds that for some reason, Miss June invited her for tea after the game was over. Tia had tried to make her villainous stance clear by mentioning her friendship with Princess Lisolna, but Miss June simply took it as a suggestion that the three of them have tea together. Cecil explains that mentioning a friend in that context is often interpreted as a request for them to be invited as well. He presents this as a good opportunity to help build a friendly relationship between Princess Lisolna and Miss June. Tia has a flash of inspiration, realizing she can attend the tea and act mean, which will serve as a warning for Princess Lisolna and give the two ladies a way to get closer to one another. Suddenly feeling relieved and realizing how tired she is, Tia announces that she will go and rest in her room for a while. As Tia prepares to leave, Cecil asks if he might borrow Miss Cynthia for a while, explaining he needs to talk to her about her bodyguard duties. Tia says it's fine as long as Cynthia doesn't mind. Cynthia assures Tia that she will join her after they are finished and can prepare the sweets Princess Lisolna had given her. Tia agrees enthusiastically, exclaiming that there's nothing better than sweets when you're tired. Once Tia has left and the door is closed, Cecil raises his glasses and turns to Cynthia, asking what really happened. Cynthia confirms that what Tia said mostly lines up with what actually happened, but that one or two things are slightly off base. She clarifies that Miss June likely interpreted Tia's behavior as an attempt to be silly on purpose, as a way to make her feel at ease despite their difference in social status. Cynthia explains that her own maids had discovered Miss June had a lot of time to kill before her scheduled meeting with Prince Islak. Miss June must have thought that Tia was aware of this and went along with the game to be kind, which is why she was so grateful and extended the invitation to tea. Cynthia then begins to narrate the encounter from Miss June's point of view. Awaiting Miss June is surprised by the sudden and grand introduction of Princess Bersha Ibn Alfasta. June is stunned and honored that Your Highness Princess Bersha remembered the name of someone like her. She immediately panics, reminding herself that she must not do anything rude in the presence of the Crown Princess of Alfasta. When Princess Bersha asks where she is headed, June explains that she is on her way to meet with Prince Islak. In response, Princess Bersha simply tilts her head. She then thrusts her face forward in a challenging manner, leaving June confused. A bewildered Miss June can only stammer, Princess Bersha then loudly declares that to pass, Miss June will have to defeat her first. She clarifies that the contest will be a game of rock, paper, scissors. The bizarre demand leaves Miss June feeling dizzy and wondering if this is some kind of Alpha-stan joke. June quickly concludes that the kind princess must be worried that she is nervous and is doing this to help her relax. With newfound understanding, she agrees to the game. They play a round with one throwing paper and the other throwing scissors. After Tia wins the initial round, she declares that they will now play with the now look over their rule and that it will be first to 10 wins. June is impressed, thinking to herself that Princess Bersha is a master of the game. June feels touched, believing that the princess must have realized she had time to spare and is kindly spending it with her, even teaching her how a game is played in Alfasta. She listens intently as Tia begins to shout the next move in the game. Tia points dramatically as she calls out, "There." After a close match that came down to a 9-8 score, Miss June declares victory. Tia gracefully concedes defeat and says that since she has been defeated, she will let Miss June pass to meet the prince. As Tia turns to say good day, June looks on for a moment. June then calls out, asking the princess to wait just a moment. She asks if Princess Bersha would like to have tea with her sometime. Tia, still trying to play the villain, declares that she happens to be very good friends with Princess Lisolna. Far from being deterred, June takes this as a wonderful suggestion, realizing it could be an opportunity to get closer to Princess Lisolna. She eagerly proposes the three of them have tea together and says she will have her maids coordinate their schedules. The flashback concludes with a very grateful Miss June thanking Princess Bersha for the day's events. Back in the present, Cynthia finishes her report and excuses herself. Cecil thanks her for the good work and asks her to keep him updated, musing that Miss June is probably telling Prince Islak about how kindly Princess Bersha treated her. After the door closes behind her, Cecil smiles to himself as he considers what to do next. He wonders aloud if the next amusing report will arise from the upcoming tea party. His aide remarks that it is quite likely they will hear something interesting even before that happens. Lately, Tia has been in an excellent mood, pleased that her Operation Sweet Villainy is proceeding perfectly, both in creating a barrier for Miss June and in disparaging her family. The tea party that Miss June invited Tia and Princess Lisolna to has since become a near-daily affair, which seems to be going well. According to intelligence gathered by Milma, Princess Lisolna, who struggles to make friends outside of politics, was happy for the opportunity to get closer to Miss June, so that part of the plan is a success. However, Tia's other villainous strategies, such as her sweet strategy, did not go quite the way she had imagined. Her initial idea was to serve sweets designed to look like bugs to upset the other ladies, a plan Cecil immediately shot down as sacrilege against the very concept of sweets. Undeterred, Tia tried to think of another theme that young ladies would not be able to stand. Her next idea was a cake decorated to look like a snake. Cecil gently pointed out to her that snakes are actually considered sacred in Chirby, a fact she likely overlooked despite seeing snake art all over the palace. When the snake-themed cake was served at the tea party, Miss June, a native of Chirby, stared at it with tears welling in her eyes. Of course, Tia completely misinterpreted the tears of joy and reverence as evidence of abject terror, believing her villainous plan had been a stunning success. Next on her agenda was the disparaging Miss June's household strategy, for which she asked Cecil if he knew anything she could use to make fun of June's family. Cecil informed her that nobles of ill repute neighboring her family's lands had been greedily eyeing their famous vineyards and using various underhanded tricks against them. Armed with this information, Tia dramatically told Miss June that a house that doesn't even realize it's being deceived is as good as done for. Tia later recounted to Cecil that Miss June ran away in tears like a tragic heroine. In reality, June immediately took Tia's timely advice to her father, and a lot of the damage was mitigated, just as Cecil had intended. At the same tea party, Tia continued her villainous offensive with another scathing remark. She told June that just selling wine is dreadfully dull, before launching into an excited speech about how the combinations for making cocktails are endless, effectively giving her business advice and becoming another one of her fans in the process. Having received regular and amusing reports about these tea parties, Cecil decides it would be best to go and keep an eye on things himself at least once. He finds Tia and tells her he is concerned Princess Lisolna may forget what he looks like if he's gone for too long, and asks if he might escort her to today's tea party. He then leans in and admits to a blushing Tia that it was just an excuse to spend as much time with her as he can. Deciding to make the most of the visit, he also plans to bring along some gifts to improve his standing with the other ladies. As they approach the garden where the tea party is being held, Tia suddenly gasps in alarm. She sees Miss June already there, but she is not alone. With her is Lady Magwena Margan, the daughter of Duke Margan and the leading candidate to become first Prince Lamtak's fiancée. Cecil observes that Lady Magwena is the very embodiment of the third-rate villainess Tia once described, as she arrogantly pressures Miss June to refuse her prior engagement to have tea with her instead. Despite June being engaged to a prince, Magwena is acting as if the daughter of a mere count should be completely at her beck and call. Tia's eyes light up, and she whispers to Cecil that this is a perfect opportunity for her to act as a stand-in villainess. When he asks what she plans to do, she declares that it will be child's play. She will strike using her own superior status, declaring that her plans with a friend will always take precedence. Cecil realizes with a start that her villainous plan is the exact same tactic Lady Margan is currently using, but before he can stop her, Tia dashes off into the confrontation. Deciding it's best to watch from a distance for the time being, he sees Tia approach Miss June. Tia appears with a cheerful greeting, exclaiming what a coincidence it is to meet Miss June there. June looks relieved to see her, but Tia's appearance only serves to further annoy Lady Magwena. Magwena condescendingly asks who Tia might be, referring to her as a friend of Miss June's, which Cecil notes must be biting sarcasm coming from someone caught in the act of bullying. Tia ignores the slight and introduces herself with her full title, Crown Princess of Alfasta, Bersha Ibel Alfasta. The introduction forces a stunned Lady Magwena to give a stiff, proper greeting. Cecil notes that by introducing herself first, Tia cleverly put the lower-status Magwena in an awkward position, which was actually quite a villainous move. Miss June, meanwhile, looks at Tia with adoration, as if seeing her guardian angel. Magwena attempts to regain control, asking if Tia has some issue with her inviting her good friend to tea. Tia calmly counters that it is boorish to try and get in the way of a tea party that has already been promised to her. Cecil adds his voice, pointing out that Miss June did try to tell her about the prior engagement, but Lady Magwena brought this on herself by not listening. A flustered June finally speaks up, confirming that she tried to explain the situation but wasn't given a chance to speak. Defeated, Magwena changes tactics and invites her for tea tomorrow instead. Cecil can see she is merely planning to take out her frustrations on June the next day. But Tia intervenes again, declaring that from now on, Miss June will be having tea with her and Princess Lisolna every single day. She finishes by stating that she will have Miss June go along with her selfishness for the time being. Cecil is impressed. With this move, Tia has both protected Miss June's position and made a dangerous enemy of Magwena, an excellently executed, if risky, play. Lady Magwena threatens that pushing too hard could start a diplomatic crisis, but Tia, completely oblivious to the political undertones, thinks Magwena is just trying to rile her up. Magwena then questions if Prince Cecil will let Tia get away with this, claiming her father and the prince became friends the other day. Cecil internally scoffs, recalling his meeting with the oafish Duke Margan, who did nothing but spill politically sensitive information while being entertained. Tia, however, responds with complete faith, stating that Prince Cecil always accepts the things that she does. Cecil notices that at the mention of his name, Tia seems to have lost her nerve and wonders what has gotten her so worried. Lady Magwena sneers, warning Tia that selfish women who have nothing but their husband's name are easily despised by gentlemen. Cecil realizes with a pang that Tia still harbors some insecurities about their relationship. A surprised Courtgain watches as Cecil strides purposefully past him toward the confrontation. Cecil appears before the ladies, smoothly greeting Lady Magwena as if their conversation is amusing. He mentions that he met her father, Duke Margan, the other day before leaning in and whispering, "Who do you think you are, speaking to me when we haven't been introduced?" He then cheerfully recounts how her father told him that since he spoiled her as a little girl, she grew up to be incredibly selfish. As Magwena flusters, Cecil continues to recount the embarrassing details her father shared about how he'd give her anything she wanted. He then abruptly changes the subject, pointing to the lovely hairpiece she is wearing. He correctly identifies it as a family heirloom that has been passed down by the ladies of Viscount Paul for generations. Magwena stammers that she is merely borrowing it, but Cecil presses on, questioning why the daughter of a duke would need to borrow a hairpin. He explains that for a noble, admitting to borrowing something is as good as admitting to being destitute, and that her on-the-spot excuse was not a good one. A defeated Magwena accepts his advice, to return the hairpiece quickly to avoid any misunderstanding, and he tells her to be sure to thank Lady Paul but not to mention his name. He smiles pleasantly and adds that he will be sure to inform Princess Lisolna of her sincerity at their tea party later. As she turns to leave, he calls out one more thing, causing her to flinch. He pulls Tia close and tells Magwena that while men may not like selfishness from any old woman, it is an entirely different story if it is someone special. He then declares that as for him, he happens to find his wife's selfishness to be exceptionally adorable. He looks down at Tia and notes with satisfaction that she seems a little relieved now. He announces that they shouldn't keep Princess Lisolna waiting and prepares to lead Tia and her maids away. As he offers to have Zeno escort Miss June, she grabs the hand of the spirit Kuro instead. She asks if Kuro would rather do it, much to Kuro's delight. Cecil notes that Kuro seems to have gotten jealous, and even Zeno seems happy about it as June places herself in Kuro's care. As the ladies walk away, Cecil bids them farewell with a pleasant smile. He then looks back at Lady Magwena with a cold, piercing stare. He warns her to never show herself in front of him again after today, because he has a habit of pulling strings to ensure that worthless people can never make mistakes again. Princess Lisolna confronts the latecomers with a clatter of her cup, asking if they don't think they are much too late. As Tia begins to apologize, Lisolna cuts her off, demanding a reason for their tardiness. Tia's eyes light up as she correctly guesses the reason for Lisolna's anger. She was worried something might have happened to them. A blushing Princess Lisolna denies it, insisting she just wanted to know what was keeping them, but her reaction is a clear bullseye for Tia's deduction. Cecil wonders how Tia managed to so easily understand the princess's true feelings. He concludes that through their letters, Tia must have learned about Lisolna's true nature and her habit of using anger as a front to hide feelings of insecurity or grief. Lisolna then turns her attention to Cecil. She asks why he has joined them, and he smoothly explains that he was merely escorting his wife and also wishes to get to know her dear friends better. His affectionate words cause Tia to blush. Lisolna remarks that Lady Bersha is always full of sunshine and that she is quite jealous. Cecil smiles, wondering if her jealousy is one of her true feelings showing through. He then announces that he has just had a good idea. He nods discreetly to an attendant off-panel. He thinks to himself that now, all that is left is to wait for his maid, Milma, to take care of things. Lisolna turns the conversation back to him, asking if he ever finds Princess Bersha exhausting. Before he can answer, Tia hugs Lisolna, saying she loves having fun chatting with her. Cecil internally admits that he does find a certain aspect of his wife exceptionally exhausting. He notices that Miss June seems to want to join in their fun as well, observing that Tia's charm pulls in everyone around her. Lisolna clears her throat, asking what he will do now, as he surely doesn't mean to intrude on a ladies' tea party. Cecil sees Milma has done an excellent job, and prepares to make his exit. He replies that he merely wanted to bring something to the tea party that his wife has been so looking forward to. Milma unveils a basket containing a special herbal tea, which he explains he had prepared from a plant he found on his journey specifically for Tia. Tia is thrilled, realizing it's the sort of tea that changes color when you add lemon. She excitedly explains that it starts as a beautiful blue, like Prince Cecil's eyes, and then changes to a deep purple, declaring that it's definitely love. Cecil internally reflects that he always keeps Tia's wishes in mind, which is how he was able to prepare this labor of love for her. Tia offers to make the tea for her friends, while Cecil considers the economic benefits this new craze will bring to their kingdom. Lisolna remarks that he truly does spoil Princess Bersha. Cecil replies that being able to spoil one's beloved is a man's exclusive pride and joy, and pointedly asks if Crown Prince Araith is different in that regard. He notes that bridging the distance between Lisolna and Araith won't be easy, especially given she's the prideful type who has trouble saying what she wants. Lisolna becomes flustered, denying that she's lonely and insisting that Prince Araith is just a very busy man. Tia looks on, confused by the sudden turn in conversation. Lisolna quickly tries to backtrack, claiming she was just surprised by such an outlandish question. She then yells that she's not lonely, which Cecil takes as clear confirmation that she is, in fact, lonely. She finally admits that seeing how close Cecil and Tia are makes her feel the distance that still exists between herself and Prince Araith. Cecil ponders her feeling of distance. Lisolna explains that Araith is open-minded and lets her act as she wishes, unlike the meddling Cecil who invites himself along to tea parties. She is grateful for the freedom he gives her, but her tone implies it's not what she truly wants. Cecil understands. At first glance, Lisolna seems like the type who doesn't want people involved in her business, but she's also prone to feeling lonely and wants to be spoiled. The conversation shifts to decorating the table with flowers, and Lisolna admits she doesn't know much about the flowers of Cherby yet. She explains that since she's not yet the crown princess, she is still essentially a guest and doesn't have her own garden or permission to take flowers. She recalls asking Tia for one of the special blue roses that Cecil had once gifted her. But Tia had refused, apologizing and explaining that the flowers were too special to her to give to anyone else. Lisolna finishes the story with a wistful smile. Cecil is moved, realizing that even the prideful princess can make such a face. She then muses that perhaps she should grow flowers the color of Prince Araith's eyes and hair in her own garden one day. Cecil suggests Araith would be happy to hear that and might even bring her the flowers now, but Lisolna dismisses it. She says he would just think it a selfish whim and that she is not as bright or honest as Princess Bersha, resigned to the image people have of her. Cecil knows it's almost time for him to leave, but feels that the critical moment for his plan has not yet arrived. Just then, Prince Araith arrives, and Cecil thinks to himself that his timing is excellent. A surprised and flustered Lisolna asks why he is there. He presents her with a large bouquet of flowers, saying he wanted to see her happy. He claims he overheard their conversation through a window that was coincidentally left open, but as he glances toward Cecil, it's clear he suspects him of orchestrating the event. Cecil, having no intention of confessing as the culprit, simply greets Prince Araith politely. Tia is overjoyed by the romantic gesture, exclaiming over the gorgeous bouquet. She helpfully explains to a confused Lisolna that Araith must have happened to overhear her wish for flowers and quickly rush to prepare a bouquet for her. Tia declares that this is absolutely love. Prince Araith confirms it, saying he wants to make the lady who will become his wife happy. Lisolna becomes extremely flustered, telling him he's too close and that men and women need to keep an appropriate distance. Araith teasingly says he learned about spousal closeness from the couple in front of them. A blushing Lisolna swats at him and tells the gentlemen to kindly excuse themselves from the ladies' tea party. Cecil apologizes for overstaying his welcome, wishes them a great time, and leaves with Prince Araith. As they depart, Prince Araith turns back and wishes Lisolna to have fun as well. He then tells her she is free to use his garden anytime and suggests they can pick out which flowers to plant in her own garden together after the wedding. Lisolna shyly says she'll consider it if she feels like it, but thanks him for the lovely bouquet. Prince Araith leaves with a warm and genuine smile. Before he fully departs, he quietly asks Miss June to look after Lisolna and Tia, and to report anything useful about Duke Margan's daughter. Cecil and Araith walk away from the tea party in silence for a few moments. Prince Araith then stops Cecil and asks to speak with him. He says that while he appreciates that Cecil is only looking out for them, things like that are quite bad for his heart, and he kindly asks him to take it easy on him in the future. Courtgain approaches Prince Cecil, informing him that Milma is here. Milma seems to appear out of thin air, startling a nearby guard, and apologizes for bothering the prince while he's busy. She reports that since the tea party earlier, Her Highness Tia has not been herself and has asked to be left alone to think, but Milma is still worried she isn't feeling well. Relieved to know the cause of Tia's mood, Cecil thanks Milma for the report and decides to go and retrieve his wife for dinner. As Milma prepares to leave for the dining hall, Cecil decides her thoughtfulness deserves a small reward. He asks Courtgain to escort Milma back to her duties while he goes to find Tia. Although Courtgain is hesitant to take up his valuable time, Cecil insists that a young lady shouldn't be walking around by herself as it will be dark soon. Internally, he knows this is just an excuse, a reward for them both. He watches them go, noting that since he first asked Courtgain to train Milma, the aide has come to look out for the girl who clearly idolizes him. As they disappear down the hall, Cecil turns and heads in the opposite direction. He muses on how Milma's presence can vanish so completely after just a few steps. He asks his attendant, Zeno, if there's a particular reason for the girl's mysteriously faint presence. Zeno sighs, telling the prince that asking a question to which you already know the answer isn't a cute look at his age. Zeno then asks if Cecil plans to do anything about Milma. Cecil replies that he won't, as he considers it a harmless quirk of her personality unless it ever threatens Tia. Cecil arrives at a garden gazebo. He finds Tia sitting there alone, lost in thought. He calls out to her, gently reminding her that it's almost time for dinner. She seems startled, having been so deep in thought that she didn't realize how much time had passed. He asks her to sit back down for a moment before they leave. He gently asks if there is something on her mind, but she quickly denies it, which he doesn't believe. She eventually relents, admitting that it is something big, but not something she feels she can do anything about. She makes him promise to keep what she's about to say a secret, and he agrees. She explains that Princess Lisolna asked her for advice earlier that day, about something she feels she should have known but didn't. Prince Araith has been visiting their tea parties with gifts, which has made Lisolna very happy, but she is troubled by the rumors surrounding him. To Tia, Araith seems like a kind and hardworking person, yet she has noticed that other people always keep a strange distance from him, as if subtly avoiding a sensitive issue. Cecil reflects that he's also noticed the professional, distant air of Araitha's entourage. He realizes that Tia never truly understood Araitha's delicate position until she saw its effects firsthand. He points out that she seems to be laying out all the details despite promising secrecy, and she continues, explaining that Prince Lamtak is harassing Araith behind the scenes. Lisolna wants to speak up for Araith when Lamtak talks down to him, but she has to consider how it would reflect on his political position. She told Tia that Lamtak even went so far as to say that being Araitha's wife will just cause her grief and she should simply go home. Cecil knows the tradition of the temporary crown prince is an old one in Cherby and would not normally cause such strife in the court. He concludes that the problem is Prince Lamtak's towering arrogance. He cannot bear to see someone else hold the position of crown prince, even temporarily. Tia laments that she didn't know how to answer when Lisolna asked for advice, as she feels she is always the one being helped by her friends, not the other way around. Cecil comforts her, telling her that she is a perfectly charming example for a princess to follow. He explains that her beautiful smile, which draws people in, is an important skill, and that she has already helped by befriending those who need allies. Tia realizes he is talking about Miss June and how the three of them have become friends. Cecil notes that clearly aligning with Araith would mean a confrontation with Lamtak, which won't be an easy task. Tia begins to wonder if the crown prince from the novel became cold and distant because of all the pressure he is currently under. When Cecil asks if she would cut him some slack if he hurt Lisolna, Tia immediately says absolutely not. Cecil smiles and agrees that they should simply continue working to help both Princess Lisolna and Crown Prince Araith. Tia's spirits are lifted, and she agrees that if they can make their lives stress-free, their marriage should go well too. With renewed vigor, she clenches her fist and declares she will go and defeat Prince Lamtak, but Cecil immediately grabs her hand to stop her. He gently explains that it would cause a lot of trouble if she, a foreign princess, beat him up, and that this sort of thing is best settled between men. He asks her to let him deal with it and says he will meet with Lamtak personally, using her name as the reason for rejecting the dinner invitation for two. Tia is delighted by this villainous-sounding plan and tells him to feel free to make her look as bad as he pleases. As she enthusiastically agrees, her stomach lets out a loud, embarrassing grumble. Cecil chuckles, asking if she's hungry, and suggests they go to dinner where everyone is waiting for them. She blushes, remembering past instances of overreading as he takes her hand. Several days later, Cecil wakes up early but misses his chance to pretend he's still asleep. He had not expected to find his wife already awake and performing a series of strange movements in front of the mirror. Just then, the spirit Kuro peeks into the room. Tia spots her and invites Kuro to join her in her quiet exercises, whispering that they must not wake Prince Cecil. But Cecil is already wide awake, listening to their entire exchange with amusement. He finally says good morning, and a startled Tia asks him exactly when he woke up. He playfully turns the question back on her, asking when she woke up instead. He asks if her strange movements are an imitation of a cat, but she insists it's shadowboxing, a proper martial art. She explains that looking in the mirror makes it easy to imagine she's boxing against a real opponent. In response, Kuro lets out a menacing hiss. The spirit then summons a terrifying shadowy figure, which frightens Tia, who thinks it looks like a ghost. Kuro then transforms the scary shadow into a small, cute black kitty. As Tia pets the kitty, Cecil asks why she has suddenly taken up practicing martial arts. She explains with determination that it's so she can physically protect Princess Lisolna. Cecil reminds her that there would be a real uproar if she got hurt, and that as the future queen, she is no longer a normal duke's daughter with such freedoms. He tells her to leave physical protection to the guards and focus on the sort of help that only she is capable of giving. He then asks if she's sure she's okay waking up so early, having gotten enough sleep. Tia changes the subject, asking him how his dinner with Prince Lamtak went the night before. The scene flashes back to the previous night, showing Cecil and a smirking Prince Lamtak sitting down for their meeting. The narrative returns to the previous day, after Cecil rejected Prince Ramtak's dinner invitation using the excuse that his wife was busy. Ramtak replied with an offer for Cecil to have a drink with him alone that very night. Cecil reflects that a nighttime invitation between new acquaintances is considered rude, as it implies an easy-to-access friendship. He discusses this breach of manners with Courtgain, noting that Ramtak shouldn't be unaware of this as his brother, Crown Prince Araith, is in charge of diplomacy. He concludes that Ramtak is surrounded by sycophants and mistakenly thinks people are glad to be invited by him, even if they only accept because they feel they can't refuse. Despite the rudeness of the invitation, Cecil decides he will go. He sees it as a perfect opportunity to sound out Ramtak's movements, as people tend to get more talkative while drinking, and many guests are arriving for the wedding. He knows Ramtak wants to get close to him to outwit his brother, Prince Araith, but he has no intention of going along with the first prince's plans. Instead, he decides to bring a full retinue of guards, including Vault and Courtgain, to the meeting. He explains that arriving with such an extravagant entourage for a simple drink will send a clear message that he has not let his guard down. It will also help spread a story that he had no choice but to accept the drink offer, having already declined the initial dinner invitation. To prevent any misunderstandings, he instructs Courtgain to nonchalantly inform Crown Prince Araith of his intentions. He sighs, lamenting that he cannot spend the evening with Tia, and decides to have Kuro and Lady Cynthia stay with her so she won't be lonely. When Courtgain questions his using Lady Bersha as an excuse, Cecil explains that any negative rumors Ramtak might spread about her will be dismissed, given Tia's well-known reputation. His primary goal is to keep Tia away from Ramtak, so it is better for Ramtak to believe she is someone he cannot win over. That night, Cecil and his large entourage arrive for the meeting with Prince Ramtak. Prince Ramtak greets him in a private room that reeks of alcohol and cigars, a smell that immediately disgusts Cecil. Courtgain discreetly whispers to His Highness. Though repulsed by the smell, Cecil knows he must act friendly in order to gather information, so he refrains from covering his nose. He thanks Ramtak for the invitation and has Courtgain present alcohol from their kingdom of Elfasta as a gift. Ramtak accepts the present with a smile, thanking him for his consideration. He notes Cecil's large number of guards, and Cecil explains he is just being cautious with so many people coming and going from the castle. Ramtak laughs, agreeing that it's true many people from various kingdoms are present for the wedding. He invites Cecil and his party to have a seat, offering the best alcohol in his kingdom. The drinks are poured into glasses with ice. Ramtak proposes a toast to the prosperity of his kingdom and Alfasta, and they raise their glasses. Before drinking, Cecil has one of his men taste the alcohol for poison, apologizing and explaining it's a standard precaution he takes when in a different country. Prince Ramtak seems wary of this display. Cecil internally notes that this is half a lie. His spirits can detect poison instantly, but the act is meant to show his cautious attitude. Cecil smiles, thinking that this level of caution is normal for royalty, and he wonders how Ramtak will handle this unspoken challenge as his face freezes. He takes a sip, confirming that the alcohol is good, and hopes it will get Ramtak drunk quickly so he can extract information. Sometime later, several empty bottles litter the table between them. About an hour into their drinking session, a drunk Ramtak begins to badmouth Tia, claiming he has heard that she is quite selfish and keeps troubling Cecil. Besides Cecil, Courtgain is internally furious, wanting to defend Lady Bersha, but he understands they must gather information. Cecil feigns surprise and calmly asks who could have said such a thing, adding how troubling it is that people know about his wife's selfishness, which he internally reframes as her cuteness. Ramtak claims that a lady who was troubled by Tia's selfishness consulted him for advice. Cecil feigns interest and smiles, but inwardly he has already identified the source of the rumor. He concludes it must be Duke Margan's daughter, as she is the only one who would say such a thing, likely fabricating the story to get closer to Ramtak. He thinks how foolish she was to believe the story wouldn't make its way back to him, the person most concerned. Ramtak asks what Cecil thinks of such troublesome women and of Prince Araith, who just lets them be, suggesting it would be more fun to be with him instead. Cecil declines, which Ramtak misinterprets as a promise of future support. They make a toast to the goddess of victory, and to the goddess named Tia, though Cecil privately thinks it's impossible for Ramtak's goddess to smile upon him. Just as Ramtak prepares another drink, there is a knock at the door. The door bursts open and Prince Islak shoves his way in, demanding to speak with Crown Prince Cecil as well. Ramtak is annoyed by his younger brother's loud interruption. Cecil, however, feels that something interesting is about to happen and tells Ramtak to let him in. A very drunk Prince Islak immediately begins complaining, lamenting that his fiancée, June, has been cold to him ever since Princess Bersha arrived and questioning why they are having tea parties every single day. Cecil calmly replies that he is listening, though he was only paying attention at the beginning. 2 hours later, Cecil is still being forced to listen to Islaka's drunken complaints about needing him to do something about Tia. He had planned to get Ramtak drunk to extract information, but Islaka's intrusion derailed his plans. Ramtak, meanwhile, has already passed out and been handed over to the servants. Cecil wryly congratulates Tia in his mind for becoming the villainess to one of the story's protagonists, even if it was Prince Islak instead of Lady June. He bluntly tells Islak that he's just lonely and wants Lady June to pay attention to him, a claim the prince vehemently denies. Cecil explains that it is natural to prioritize guests and that it's important for royal women to deepen their bonds through social events. Islak whines that the frequent tea parties mean June can no longer come to see him. Cecil logically points out that if she can't come, then he should go see her, revealing that he and Prince Araith have been able to drop by with refreshments. Islak is upset that he wasn't called either, but Cecil reminds him that the other ladies' fiancés weren't invited to the ladies' tea party. He presses further, asking if June even tells him about the tea parties and reminding him that a lady's authority depends on how she is regarded by her partner. He suggests that perhaps she was expecting him to come on his own, or that she is simply enjoying the idle chatter of the tea parties. He then points out that there's a possibility June doesn't really want to attend but is being considerate of Tia, and that Islak should talk to her to find out how she truly feels. Islak insists that at a time like this, the lady should be the one to talk to the gentleman about it, complaining about his standing as a man. Cecil sighs, his head starting to hurt, as he deciphers Islaka's true desire. He wants Lady June to devote herself to him without him having to make a move himself. He reminds Islak that in this kingdom, it is considered shameful for men to expect to be supported by women and to not worry about their moods. Islak is shocked at the implication that he could be abandoned for such behavior. Cecil points out that he is being arrogant and tyrannical like his brother, Ramtak, and that there's no guarantee Lady June feels the same way as he does. A flustered Prince Islak shouts that he is not in love. Seeing how possessive the young prince is, Cecil calmly asks why he doesn't just annul the engagement then, suggesting that if he didn't like her, he wouldn't have come here to complain. Islak panics, exclaiming that annulling their engagement is no laughing matter. He then declares firmly that he has already decided he will spend his life with June. Cecil pauses, letting those words hang in the air. He then asks Islak if saying that Lady June is an irreplaceable, precious existence to him is not, in fact, love. Prince Islak is left speechless, the words finally seeming to resonate with him. Cecil gets up to leave, stating that it's not easy to disprove a person's ingrained culture and that Islak should think things through by himself. As he leaves, Islak looks after him with the expression of an abandoned dog, making Cecil feel a little sorry for him. However, he quickly dismisses the feeling, thinking that he has worked hard enough today by listening to the prince's unwanted relationship consultation. He tells a waiting courtgane that he should take a look at the ladies' tea party at least once, as they enjoy it a lot. He closes the door on the drunk and confused princes. Back in his room, he asks Tia if he smells of alcohol, but she says he only smells as refreshing as usual. She then asks how his meeting with Prince Ramtak went, and he explains that Ramtak got drunk and was replaced by an intruding Prince Islak. Tia is immediately excited, asking if he was able to hear about the progress of Islak's relationship with Lady June. He tells her that Islak is lonely without June but has yet to notice his true feelings, carefully omitting the fact that her tea parties are the cause of his distress. He downplays the evening, saying Islak simply got drunk and complained, and suggests that they should just secretly watch over the young couple for now. Tia agrees, and Cecil is relieved that she will only watch over them, preventing her from going on a rampage and causing any misunderstandings. He then asks her how things have been going with her and the other ladies lately. Tia admits that, for some reason, she has become quite close to Lady June, forgetting her intended role as a substitute villainess. She explains that since June is younger than her, she has started to think of her like a little sister, something Cecil finds easy to imagine given how affectionate she is with her actual brother. She says she finally gave up on her villainous plan when she proposed a tea party for guests to help Lady Lasolna, and June immediately offered to help with a big smile. Cecil tells her that having June's help is reassuring, as she understands the local culture. Tia agrees and resolves to plow ahead and do her best with Lady June's complete support. At a crowded party, a young lady wonders what Prince Islak is doing, as he seems to be waiting for someone to come to him instead of entering. She clenches her hands in frustration, remembering that when she asked him at school if he would be attending, he gave her a non-committal answer. She scans the room and, not seeing him, concludes with visible irritation that he must not have come after all. Watching her from a distance, Cecil can't help but wonder if he should take some harsh measures to resolve the situation. He discreetly signals to Tia, whispering that he is forcibly escorting a late guest and needs her to create a distraction so he won't be seen. Tia spots him peeking from behind a pillar and immediately understands her role. She loudly exclaims that her favorite cake is across the room, causing a commotion and drawing the attention of the surrounding guests. As the crowd is distracted, Cecil asks Miss June to accompany Tia, giving him the perfect opportunity to slip away and deal with their tardy guest. He finds Prince Islak sulking outside the party venue, looking shocked to see him. Islak demands to know why Prince Cecil is there, and Cecil calmly explains that since Islak clearly can't enter by himself, he came all the way here to pick him up. He then asks what business the young prince had stalking a woman from behind a pillar, as he has no intention of going to the tea party himself. Cecil admits that while he was initially annoyed by the prince's behavior, he became concerned that his anxiety would cause him to lose his composure in some strange manner. He confirms with Islak that he felt he couldn't come to the party unless June invited him personally, and the prince admits it's true. Cecil points out that he was invited many times, making his failure to attend a disappointment and leaving Islak without a valid argument. He warns the prince that if he keeps acting this way, people will lose patience with him, and that he should treat the person he cares for with gentleness and respect. If you don't cherish the people important to you, they won't cherish you back. He reminds Islak that he came here today because he put his feelings for June first, even before his duty to his brother, and asks if he is going to ruin that important first step. The words seem to resonate with the young prince, who falls silent as he begins to think for himself. Islak quietly reflects on his relationship with his brother and the jealousy he felt when he was younger. Cecil, wanting to return to Tia's side, tells him they should go quickly, and Islak agrees. The prince is impressed by Cecil's manly decisiveness and his open devotion to his fated maiden. They return to the party, with Cecil carrying a tray of snacks and sweets for the waiting ladies. Tia happily welcomes them back, also extending a warm welcome to a surprised Prince Islak. June is shocked to see him there, and he explains that he came because it seemed like she wanted him to. A wide, happy smile spreads across June's face. Cecil reflects that since the two have known each other for so long, they were able to figure things out, and he feels he deserves a little gift for all the effort he put in. He then explains to a flustered Islak that he brought him to the party because he was staring at the venue, clearly upset that June was busy with Tia. Islak is embarrassed by the accusation of jealousy, but Cecil tells him not to be. He admits that he was just imitating Tia, who clearly loves Miss June. Islak protests that his relationship with June is different, but Tia insists it's the same, leading to a frantic back-and-forth debate. As Islak panics, completely unsure of the nature of his own feelings, Cecil watches the messy but endearing scene unfold. Finally, Islak declares that whether they are childhood friends or something more, the seat beside him belongs only to June, and she just has to stay by his side. He then promises that he will do his best to pay more attention to her from now on. A blushing June shyly asks if he will escort her after the party is over, and he readily agrees, as it is his duty as her fiancé. As the two young lovers reconcile, Cecil is pleased that somehow, everything is coming together nicely. Tia decides it's a good time for them to leave the couple alone and interact with the other guests. Princess Lisolna mentions that she has plans to meet with the Empress Dowager and the Queen later, and invites them to join her, as she would feel intimidated by herself. June is happy that she will have Prince Islak with her for the meeting. Islak promises that he will accompany her whenever she wants to meet with his mother. June thanks him warmly, her happiness evident. At a pleasant tea party, various guests are delighted to be speaking with the Crown Prince and Princess of Alfasta, thanking them for the opportunity and complimenting the delicious potato chips Tia introduced. Prince Cecil observes that while the party is a good opportunity for others to approach Tia, the more socially adept guests have already gracefully excused themselves, leaving the less mindful ones to linger. He decides it's time to intervene, thinking to himself that if they wait any longer, Tia is going to wither away from her lack of sweets. Cecil approaches Tia and asks if she is feeling tired, which prompts a nearby couple to apologize for keeping her so long, noting she must be exhausted from her popularity. The couple kindly suggests that she should go ahead and take a break. Another guest remarks on how tactful Cecil's wife is for having him announce she's taking a break, as the other guests agree to chat with her again some other time. Finally free, Tia expresses her joy at getting to eat some delicious cake, while Cecil decides to stay with her until his next appointment, having already spoken to the people he needed to. As they enjoy a quiet moment, a voice calls out to Prince Cecil and Princess Bersha. The newcomer is their aide, Courtgain. Cecil asks if he is enjoying the tea party, which Courtgain affirms. Cecil inwardly muses that he had sent Courtgain to gather information earlier and wonders if he is here to deliver a progress report, while Tia cheerfully asks Courtgain if he has tried the tasty chips. Cecil quietly asks his aide if there was anything out of the ordinary to report. Courtgain replies that there was nothing major, just a small encounter where someone recognized Prince Cecil from Alfasta. He recounts that he was approached by Bistona Yumiurb, the 8th princess of the Yumiurb kingdom, who had heard that Prince Cecil was quite the gentleman. A small drawing depicts the character's reactions to this news. Cecil asks for more details, and Courtgain discreetly informs him that the princess is Lysona's younger sister and is known for actively seeking out high-ranking men. Cecil understands now why the princess only greeted him. He realizes that as she is a princess and the sister of his wife's friend, he cannot simply ignore her. To handle the situation, he formally introduces himself as Cecil Glow Alfasta, as a blushing Princess Bistona looks on. He then gestures to his wife, introducing her as Bersha Ibel Alfasta. Tia adds that she is also good friends with Princess Lisona. Princess Bistona, clearly annoyed by the interruption, remarks that she didn't see Tia at first due to her lack of presence, a comment Cecil finds transparently rude. Undeterred, Bistona offers to become Cecil's concubine, an offer he politely deflects by stating that he is simply content watching his wife eat happily and that, unfortunately, Alfasta does not have a concubine system. He then pulls Tia close, holding her hand and kissing her forehead while declaring that, besides, he only loves his wife, which makes Tia blush deeply. A dejected Princess Bistona hides behind her fan and concedes defeat. The sudden switch in her attitude is immediately apparent to those watching. Her attention then shifts to the man standing nearby, and she asks who he is. Cecil introduces him as his close aide, Courtgain Deers Vladder. Courtgain introduces himself, expressing his hope that they will become better acquainted in the future. Cecil silently hopes his aide's internal thoughts are not what he suspects they are. Princess Bistona flirtatiously introduces herself and tells Courtgain he can call her by her first name. She invites Viscount Vladar for a private conversation, but he firmly insists that he prefers to be called by his title, a preference Tia finds amusingly shy. Courtgain politely declines her offer, explaining that he has an errand to run for Prince Cecil. Cecil steps in, confirming that Courtgain is correct and adding that he must help Milma, who has been frozen with tears in her eyes for a while from being tangled up with the princess. A disappointed Bistona tells Courtgain to visit her after his errands are finished. Cecil then instructs Milma to help Courtgain finish his errands quickly. Cecil quietly gives Courtgain his real task, to take Milma to the palace and have her prepare some tea. Milma beams and eagerly accepts the assignment. He warns Milma that the princess is currently glaring at her, but assures her that once they leave, Bistona won't be able to find her. Princess Bistona watches them depart, sullenly bidding farewell to Viscount Vladar. Cecil smiles at the stoic Courtgain, remarking that it would be nice if that was the end of the matter. As the tea party draws to a close, the group moves on to their next engagement, a small gathering with the Empress Dowager and other royals. The Empress Dowager warmly expresses her joy that her son, Araith, is marrying such a beautiful girl. She adds that she always felt the stars aligned whenever she saw the two of them together. The group chats amiably, with the Empress asking the busy couple if they still make time for a daily walk together. Prince Araith explains that they do, and that they decorate his room with flowers picked from Princess Lysona's garden while discussing what to plant there next. He adds that he is simply taking care of her to help her get used to her new home. Princess Lysona blushes, thinking he is just being kind, while the Empress Dowager laughs affectionately, thinking her poor son's kindness is being misinterpreted. The Empress also expresses her relief that her other grandson is getting along well with his own fiancée. Cecil reflects that it seems both couples will be fine, no matter what happens. The Empress Dowager then sighs that the only remaining problem is her other son, Lamtak, which makes Cecil wonder if Tia still intends to play the role of a substitute villainess for him. The Queen agrees, and both women complain that Lamtak gives them headaches because he is surrounded by many women but still can't decide on a fiancé. The Queen expresses her hope that one day the perfect woman will appear for him, like the legendary saint. Cecil notes that the Queen seems more sympathetic toward Prince Araith when the topic of Prince Lamtak comes up. The mention of a legendary saint immediately captures Tia's interest, as she remembers such a figure from Chirby's legends. The Empress Dowager asks if they are familiar with the common story of the two-headed snake on their country's flag. Tia correctly identifies the snake as Chirby's guardian deity, and the Empress adds that the story begins with the deity's wrath, as he was once a rather scary figure. She recounts that the first king of Chirby was a pirate whose constant territorial disputes angered the snake deity, who in turn caused storms to rage every day. To appease the deity, the king's daughter set out onto the raging sea as a living sacrifice. Her fiancé soon followed, jumping into the sea with her, and together they prayed. Their combined thoughts reached the two-headed snake deity, who calmed the storm and revealed himself to them. Moved by their selfless act, the deity bit their fingertips and bestowed blessings upon them and the king, becoming the country's revered guardian. The Empress explains that ever since that time, whenever the country has faced hardship, two saints have appeared to protect it by offering prayers and blood to the deity. She asks Princess Bersha if she enjoyed the story, while Cecil privately thinks that such legends are often twisted over time to suit people's preferences. While Cecil sees logical holes in the tale, Tia is completely captivated, calling it a very nice story of true love. She finds the selfless nature of the story to be just like something out of a novel. From her expression, Cecil realizes that she has just remembered something from the novel she knows. He feels a sense of danger, noting that Tia tends to become fixated on specific roles like fated maiden or saint rather than the overall plot. He believes that fate can be overwritten, but he can see that Tia is still unsure. He makes a mental note to hear more about it from her later. Later that night in their room, Tia calls out to the prince. She tells him that she has remembered something important. Cecil correctly guesses that it is about the deity and the saint, remarking that her reaction to the legend earlier was funny. Tia is shocked that he knew what she was thinking. She asks if her reaction was really that obvious, but Cecil reassures her that the others did not notice. He tells her that he is always observing her, which causes her to blush and say it would be nice if he didn't. He encourages her to tell him about the saint. After she finishes her explanation, he says that it's about what he had assumed. Tia explains that in the novel's plot, a war causes the sea to turn red again, angering the snake deity. The deity is then calmed by the actions of June, who becomes a saint, and Prince Islak. Cecil brings up the topic of the war, asking Tia if she truly thinks it will happen, a question that startles her. He then reveals that he had too much free time before their marriage and thoroughly crushed any budding seeds of war, leading Tia to realize that most of the battles from the Otome game were his doing. He gently reminds her that they are now walking together down the one route she always said was peaceful. Tia still worries that there is always a chance of war, but Cecil counters that the novel and the Otome game are completely unrelated. Nevertheless, he decides to check on the situations of the surrounding countries, just in case. He tells her not to worry too much and that he will do what he can to ensure peace. Tia confesses her fear that if she slacks off on her role as a villainess, June and Islaka's relationship won't become strong enough for them to fulfill their destined roles as saints, and it will be her fault. She declares that from now on, she must act hostile toward Miss June. Cecil tells her she doesn't have to, arguing that if the country is so fragile that it would be destroyed by that, then the problem lies with the country itself. Tia despairs, crying that she can't be hostile because she and June are already good friends. Cecil comforts her, telling her to rest and that they can think about it tomorrow. He promises that he will think about it with her, all the while wondering how he should best stop her from running amok this time. A wedding procession is seen making its way toward a cave-like shrine by the sea. Onlookers admire the procession, commenting on how beautiful Princess Lisona looks and how stunning the couple's traditional outfits are. Above all, they note that the bride and groom both look truly happy on their special day. Cecil remarks that while the couple seemed awkward at first, they now look as if they belong together and will surely make a good match. As the procession disappears into the shrine, Tia observes that most royal events in this country are deeply intertwined with religious rituals. She says it's no wonder, given the nation's history with the sea, that they so deeply revere the snake deity's shrine, their most sacred place. She looks out at the water, wishing that the guests were allowed to go down to the beautiful beach. Cecil reassures her that he was informed the area will be opened to guests after the rituals are complete, everywhere except for the shrine itself, which is a great relief to Tia. The scene showcases the beautiful, secluded beach, naturally enclosed on both sides by large, mountainous cliffs and meeting the endless blue sea. Cecil notes that the location is perfect for defense, far safer than any of the freely used beaches in their own country. Tia enthusiastically suggests they should look for a similar place back home where everyone can play together, a thought that Cecil finds very characteristic of her. He then notices that Prince Islak has been staring directly at him for a while, which he finds odd, as he would understand if the prince were looking at Tia. He reflects that since the tea party, Islak has been able to express his feelings more openly, and his relationship with Miss June seems to be progressing well. Cecil asks Tia how things have been going with Miss June since then, while also noting that although Islak is grateful for Cecil's help, he has now become strangely attached to him, even calling him Big Bro. Tia admits that she finds it difficult to act hostile toward Miss June, as she can't bring herself to ignore her when she speaks so cheerfully to her. Cecil observes that even now, sparks would fly if their eyes happen to meet. He then points Tia's attention to another part of the party, telling her that if she looks over there, she'll realize she won't have to work so hard at being a villainess. Tia looks and sees Princess Bistona, immediately realizing that Bistona is unknowingly playing the role of a stand-in villainess for Princess Lisona, completely unaware of the novel's plot. Princess Lisona is seen confronting Princess Bistona, stating that it seems she is trying to defend Miss June, and that her intervention worked, as Bistona backed off. Lisona thinks to herself that, logically, it's not surprising that Bistona's next target would be Prince Lamtak. A tense confrontation begins to brew between Princess Bistona and Lady Margan. Cecil explains that in Yumiurb, a country with many princesses, good marriage proposals are scarce, so the princesses must be proactive, like predators hunting prey. He recalls a conversation he had with the crown prince of Yumiurb, Nishikar, who seemed to have a lot on his plate. Prince Nishikar had confessed that he is constantly busy dealing with complaints against his strong-willed sisters, especially Princess Bistona, and Cecil felt a sense of sympathy and camaraderie with him. Cecil reflects that if Princess Lisona had not met Tia and changed, she would likely be behaving in a manner very similar to her sister Bistona right now. He mentions that Lisona had asked him to find a good match for her brother, someone who would be good for both him and his stomach, but he thinks that will be difficult and intends to keep his country out of their affairs. Tia suggests Mr. Courtgain as a match, but Cecil immediately rejects the idea. Tia has heard from Milma that Courtgain has been troubled by being followed since the tea party, but she sees it as a blessing in disguise that gives him and Milma more opportunities to talk. Cecil, though understanding of Courtgain's feelings, believes he will be alright with Milma and that at least they won't get into that kind of trouble, just as he notices the two of them are already having an argument. Tia is shocked he won't try to stop them, but Cecil advises her to stay away, reassuring her that they will be fine since Prince Nishikar is there to mediate, though his stomach might not recover from the stress. Tia agrees, and Cecil reminds her that she should rest when she can, as they still have the wedding party ahead of them, which will likely go late into the night. He adds that he is excited to see what she has been working so hard to prepare, and Tia happily exclaims that she is excited too. The scene shifts to the grand hall where the wedding reception is being held, with guests seated at numerous tables. An announcer asks the guests to rise and welcome His Royal Highness Crown Prince Araith of Cherby and Her Royal Highness Princess Lisona of Umayurb. The stunning bride and groom make their grand entrance, holding hands. The guests are in awe of how stunning the couple looks. Tia excitedly points out the beautiful mermaid dress Lisona is wearing, a design inspired by mermaids. She explains that because Cherby and Umayurb are both lands blessed by the sea and lush greenery, she felt the mermaid design was perfect for Princess Lisona. A nearby guest, overhearing their conversation, apologizes for intruding and asks if the dress was designed by Princess Bersha. Tia confirms that she designed it, and the delighted guest asks if she could tell her more about it after the ceremony, an offer Tia happily accepts. Cecil smiles, pleased that the dress is being received so well, and thinks to himself that mermaid dresses will likely become more popular in the future. Afterwards, the celebration continues. Tia had prepared several events for the reception, including a champagne tower and a bouquet toss, all of which went smoothly and were enjoyed by the guests. With the preliminary events concluded, the wedding reception is finally about to begin in earnest. Tia is absolutely thrilled, exclaiming that she can finally show off her Japanese sake. Cecil asks if she is really going to do this, and she insists that she must be the one to present the gift to Princess Lisona. He warns her not to overdo it, and she confidently tells him to leave everything to her. Across the room, Cecil spots Prince Lamtak, who has been drinking heavily since the start of the party, with his brother trying to tell him he's had too much. Cecil observes that in his drunken state, Prince Lamtak won't be able to properly converse with guests for quite some time. The happy couple, Crown Prince Araith and Princess Lisona, are seated on their thrones at the head of the room. Tia and Cecil approach the newlyweds and offer their congratulations on the marriage. Prince Araith thanks them for taking the time to attend their wedding. Cecil embraces him, stating that this gesture should be enough to show the friendly relations between their nations. He adds that one can get an even better sense of their relationship by looking at the ladies standing beside them. As a gift, Tia presents a bottle of their country's newly developed liquor. The other guests are intrigued, especially since the crown princess herself brought the bottle over. The royal couple thanks her profusely for the gift, on top of all her help with the ceremony. Tia replies that seeing them so joyful brings her happiness. Tia moves to pour the Japanese sake for the bride and groom. Cecil instinctively reaches out to help her with the large bottle, but notices that she is handling it just fine on her own. The couple sips the sake, remarking on its rich taste, pleasant scent, and how it is sweet and easy to drink despite its strength. They declare that the drink is perfect for celebratory events, and Cecil notes how focused Tia was on making this special Japanese sake. He explains to the couple that while their production of the sake is still small, his wife brought many bottles over because she specifically wanted to serve it at this event. Prince Araith expresses his appreciation and asks if he may take them up on their generous offer. He then announces to all the guests that they have received Japanese sake from the Crown Prince and Princess of Alfasta as a celebratory gift. A large barrel of sake and a wooden hammer are brought out, puzzling the guests. The announcer explains that it has been kindly prepared for everyone to enjoy. The couple breaks the lid of the barrel with the hammer, and the announcer invites all the guests to partake in the sake. Tia whispers to Cecil that the ceremony was as successful as they had hoped. Cecil reflects that while he didn't understand Tia's idea of breaking the barrel with a wooden hammer at first, it is undeniably eye-catching. The novel ceremony, which replaced a more traditional one, is now being adopted as a new tradition. The newlyweds thank Tia and Cecil again from the bottom of their hearts for everything. Tia replies that seeing the smiles on their faces makes it all worth it. A small drawing shows the four royals together. Princess Lisona confesses to Tia that she was so nervous about the sake ceremony that she hasn't eaten much yet, but promises to eat to her heart's content now. She holds Tia's hands and expresses her deep gratitude to Princess Bersha. Later, Tia happily exclaims how delicious the food is. Cecil, knowing she has been holding back since the tea party, suggests they go check out the desserts as well. As they are looking at the dessert table, a voice behind them says, "Oh my, if it isn't their Royal Highnesses Crown Prince Cecil and Princess Bersha?" A man holding a glass raises it to them, thanking them for everything they have done for his country today. Cecil turns and recognizes the man as Prince Lamtak. Prince Lamtak approaches Prince Cecil and Tia at the wedding reception. Cecil observes that while Lamtak appears more composed than earlier, he still seems to be quite drunk. He then glances at Tia, who is standing with a fan covering her face, looking unusually calm. Cecil inwardly sighs, realizing that ever since he used Tia as an excuse to decline Lamtak's dinner invitation, the prince has likely held a negative opinion of her. Lamtak twists Cecil's protective gesture into an accusation, suggesting he is restraining his selfish wife from speaking. Cecil, however, thinks to himself that he simply did not want Tia near the likes of him. Lamtak then gestures to the women accompanying him, sarcastically remarking that surely Cecil is enjoying their company as well. Cecil dismisses the notion, stating that while he is having the time of his life, he has no interest in joining Lamtak's group. Undeterred, Lamtak smirks and invites Cecil to join him and his companions. Cecil's expression darkens as he confronts Lamtak, questioning if he was truly just invited to look at other women directly in front of his wife, Tia. Miss June, noticing the rising tension in the room after Prince Lamtak's arrival, cleverly interrupts the confrontation by suggesting that she has been wanting to speak with Tia. Seizing the opportunity to remove Tia from the uncomfortable situation, Cecil asks her to wait for him with Miss June, explaining that he has a feeling Lamtak is up to something and he needs to investigate. Tia agrees to his request and heads over to join Miss June without him. Lamtak, completely misreading the situation, continues to provoke Cecil by asking what kind of woman he likes. Cecil coldly and definitively replies that his preference, past, present, and future, is and always will be an adorable and lovely woman like his wife. Lamtak then changes the subject, boasting about how he has been getting quite close with Princess Bistona lately, whose type he describes as alluring and attractive. He places particular emphasis on her high status as a princess of Yumiurb. He then offers Cecil a favorable trading position with Yumiurb, an offer that makes Cecil question why Lamtak would so easily reveal what's on his heart and assume they are on the same side. Lamtak explains his plan is to use Princess Bistona to gain information on Yumiurb's weak spots, thereby weakening the motherland of his rival, Crown Prince Araith. He confidently asserts that because Princess Bistona is currently infatuated with him, he is sure she would do anything he asks, even if it means selling out her own nation. Cecil finds the idea of this succeeding to be impossible. He points out the flaw in Lamtak's plan. It's suspicious that the princess is supposedly infatuated with him when she is known to be talking to many other men on the side. Cecil suggests that it is more likely Lady Margan who is truly infatuated, whereas Lamtak is just one of many potential suitors for the princess. He states that while he doesn't care what happens to Princess Bistona, his primary concern is to prevent her sister, Princess Lisona, from feeling sad over the matter. Now that he has heard everything, Cecil changes the subject, asking Lamtak where all his money went and if it was used to fund his little tricks. He brings up the recent arrest of a merchant at the port who was caught smuggling a large quantity of weapons and was also found to be hiding illegal poisonous substances. Cecil then adds that a little bird told him that Prince Lamtak was quite friendly with those particular merchants. He sarcastically asks Lamtak to recommend a nice restaurant, preferably one that serves spicy crabs, a thinly veiled reference to the smuggled goods and illicit dealings. He clarifies his meaning, stating he is looking for the perfect place for a secret meeting in a private room, making his accusation unmistakable. A flashback reveals that after investigating Chirby's situation, Cecil's party had received information about a group gathering weapons in the royal capital. This suspicious movement was surprisingly made to appear as though it was being led by Crown Prince Araith himself. A shocked Lamtak wonders how Cecil could have known. It is revealed that even with very little evidence, Cecil was perceptive enough to grasp the entire situation. Cecil declares that he and his wife want to enjoy their time, and since Lamtak sincerely thought his plan wouldn't lead back to him, he must now take care of the mess he created. Defeated and exposed, Lamtak wordlessly excuses himself and leaves. Tia returns, apologizing for keeping Cecil waiting. Miss June accompanies her, reporting with some concern that Princess Bersha has been drinking quite a lot of alcohol. Cecil thanks her for her help and notes that Tia's face is indeed a little red. Cecil tells Tia that he is going to greet some other guests for a bit and asks if she will be all right on her own, to which she enthusiastically agrees. Cecil thinks to himself, "Oh no. He reflects that while Tia can act like a goofball, she has a strong sense of responsibility and is not normally like this. Just then, a clearly intoxicated Tia wobbles over to him, happily exclaiming how happy Princess Lisona looks. Cecil asks her directly, "Are you drunk?" She denies it but immediately asks where the sweets are. Cecil realizes that between the drinks offered during socializing, the celebratory sake, and her anxiety drinking over the saint plotline, she has become drunk. Seeing her clutching the sake bottle she brought for show, Cecil gets a bad feeling and decides he needs to change his approach, suggesting they head outside for a break because he is feeling a little tired. Tia eagerly agrees, exclaiming, "Let's go take a break." As they walk, she asks where they should go to rest. She then declares that she wants to go to the sea, specifically to the beach they had seen earlier. They are guided down a staircase to the beach, where a rug has been laid out on a path to avoid dirtying their clothes on the rocky ground. Ignoring the path completely, a joyous Tia runs directly toward the water, shouting, "It's the Sia!" Cecil exchanges a silent, tense look with a nearby guard who witnessed the princess's outburst. He gives the guard a look that clearly communicates he is not to say a word about what he just saw. The terrified guard swears he won't say anything, understanding that while Cecil's wife is cute, he is not fond of others seeing this side of her. Tia giggles as she stands in the surf, noting how cold the water feels, while Cecil laments that her dress and shoes must now be a mess. He looks down at the hem of her dress in the water and is surprised to see that it isn't getting wet at all. It is revealed that Kuro, a dark-attributed spirit whose powers are strongest at night, has readily agreed to help, and Cecil asks her to make it hard to see around them without it looking unnatural. Kuro agrees to also use wind to adjust the sound, just in case anything goes wrong. A drunken Tia then spots a two-headed snake emerging from the water and, referencing the legend of Yamada no Orochi, tries to pour sake for it. Cecil dryly points out that having just two heads doesn't make it a Yamada. Undeterred, Tia declares that it's unfair for only one head to drink and proceeds to pour sake for the second head, a display Cecil finds to be very Tia-like. He observes that the two-headed snake closely resembles the one on the country's flag and gets a bad feeling about the situation. As soon as the snake finishes drinking the sake, there is a flash of light. Kuro appears, looking furious. She defensively shields Tia, yelling at the snake for being an idiot and trying to make a contract with someone else's master. It becomes clear that the guardian deity of this country is, in fact, a mid-ranked water attribute spirit that just happened to be called a deity. Tia, holding onto Kuro, tells her that animal abuse isn't good, while Cecil thinks to himself that her reckless drinking isn't good either. The group discusses spirit contracts, noting that the legend mentioned the snake deity desired a pure maiden's blood, making an immediate contract unlikely. The conversation turns to the story from Tia's novel, where Miss June becomes a saint and gives blood to the snake. They recall that her family is famous for their wine production. They make the connection that wine looks similar to blood. They realize the spirit has troublesome, obsessive tendencies and likely try to make a contract with Tia in exchange for the alcohol, just as it might offer to lend a hand to June in exchange for wine. The two-headed snake spirit continues to watch them from the water. It suddenly lunges forward again with its mouths open. Kuro once again attacks the spirit with a blast of dark energy, and Cecil sighs, feeling like this could go on forever. Tia calls out to a speeding Kuro, telling her she's too fast. Cecil decides it's time for them to head back. The defeated and sad-looking snake spirit is left bobbing in the water. As they leave the beach, Cecil reflects that a saint and a snake deity have now been added to their growing list of troublesome things to deal with. 3 days have passed since the wedding, and while the group was supposed to return home, they've extended their stay because the kingdom wishes to host a celebration thanking Tia for her help. With most foreign guests having already departed, the remaining events are primarily domestic affairs, which Princess Bistona is reportedly using as an opportunity to find herself a husband. While receiving a report, Cecil notes that his aide, Cordigane, seems unusually exhausted, likely assuming his days of being pursued were over. For Cecil and his companions, the end of the hectic wedding preparations meant they could finally take some time to relax. Tia is seen enjoying a quiet moment, having tea in a sunlit courtyard with another lady and her maid, Kuro. However, this peaceful scene was not meant to last, as Kuro holds a mysterious, intricately woven ball in her hands. It's revealed that the snake deity they encountered is trapped inside the ball, an oddity that only Cecil, Tia, and their close companions seem able to perceive. Cecil dryly questions the propriety of playing ball with a foreign deity, while his subordinate Zeno simply calls the entity troublesome. Kuro begins to bounce the ball with increasing speed and force, a development Zeno remarks was inevitable given the snake's recent persistent behavior. The snake's troublesome persistence apparently began the very morning after the wedding ceremony, as it took action the moment they left the beach. On that morning, Tia woke with a yawn, feeling surprisingly fine despite her hangover, only to be startled by an unexpected sight. Her memory of the previous night is hazy, and she wonders aloud if she truly drank so much as Cecil gets up to fetch her some water. A close-up reveals Cecil's concerned and slightly weary expression. As he walks toward the door, he discovers the source of Tia's surprise. The two-headed snake spirit is on the floor, sobbing in a puddle of its own tears. Zeno later explains that Kuro had erected protective barriers around the bedroom, and the snake had been trying to get through them all night in a desperate attempt to form a contract with Tia. Cecil speculates that Tia's drunken, affectionate nicknames for the snake, Mr. Snake, and Yamada no Rochi, were what made it so insistent on forming a contract. Indeed, the poor spirit looks completely worn out, as if it had spent every last bit of energy in a futile, all-night struggle against Kuro's magic. In the process, its tears flooded the hallway outside the back room, and Cecil tasks a protesting Zeno with cleaning up the mess before the other maids can see it. Zeno complains about having to clean up the snake's mess while Cecil explains to his staff that the situation was caused by a spirit's power. After having the whole situation explained, Tia, whose memory is still vague, can only ask what on earth is going on. Tia's primary concern becomes that if she becomes a saint for the snake deity, she can't fulfill her role as a stand-in villainess, a prospect she finds unacceptable. This is the reason that, for the past few days, Kuro has been relentlessly chasing the snake away whenever it gets near Tia, a display of perseverance Cecil finds somewhat admirable. Cecil approaches the relaxing group, announcing he has finished his work and now wishes to spend time with Tia. He politely advises another lady, Miss Cynthia, to take a break while they have tea, dismissing her protests that it would be improper. He further encourages her to go sightseeing since their departure is approaching, even offering one of his men as an escort. He reassures the wary woman that there are no ulterior motives. He simply wants to spend some quiet time with Tia. As she accepts his offer, Cecil muses that for some reason, people always believe there's a hidden meaning behind his actions. Meanwhile, the maid Milma is in a predicament, wanting to get a message to Mr. Cordigane but feeling too shy to approach him directly. Cecil gently tells Milma that she can talk to him about it, offering to ask Cordigane on her behalf but stressing that the final decision must be his friend's own. Cecil apologizes to Tia for not being able to take her on a proper date in a foreign country and thanks her for her kindness toward his friends and staff. He feels Kuro's intense gaze, sensing her impatience for him to get on with whatever he is planning. Cecil turns to Zeno and instructs him to have the guards act as usual. He explains to a confused Tia that, as usual, is a code that instructs their escorts to protect them from a distance, giving them privacy for a proper chat. Cecil then asks Kuro to lift the boundaries around the ball, explaining that he can't talk to the spirit otherwise. The ball dissolves, and the unconscious two-headed snake plops unceremoniously onto the table. Tia immediately cries out in concern for Little Futamida, a nickname she has given the small snake. She happily explains her logic. Since the legendary Yamada no Orochi has 8 heads and this one has only 2, he is a little two-pronged creature. While Zeno suppresses a laugh, the snake itself looks confused by its new name. Cecil wryly points out that the name Futamida sounds very similar to the words for two-pronged fork. Deciding to embrace the absurdity, Cecil addresses the snake by its new name, Futamida, while Tia asks Kuro if she has been bullying the little creature again. Cecil apologizes to Futamida on Kuro's behalf, claiming she meant no harm, though he privately thinks she definitely did. He explains to Tia that Kuro is just feeling pitiful and was defending her position as Tia's sole spiritual companion. Realizing her maid was acting out of jealousy, Tia turns to Kuro with understanding. Kuro reacts by starting to crush the poor snake in her fist, forcing Tia to yell at her to stop harming living things. Futamida lets out a silent, terrified scream. The 2 small snakeheads bite down hard on Kuro's arm in self-defense. However, their fangs are useless against Kuro's powerful barrier, which protects her arm from any harm. Sensing a troublesome gaze from afar, Cecil decides to resolve the situation quickly by removing his glove. Tia gently holds Futamida and explains that while she is grateful for its feelings, she already has Kuro and cannot become a saint for another country. Cecil adds that while Futamida seems to understand it's being rejected, it likely doesn't grasp what Tia's role as a villainess truly entails. Feeling sorry for the dejected spirit, Cecil guesses that it wants to drown its sorrows in alcohol. He makes Futamata an offer. If the snake does him a favor, he will provide it with even more alcohol than before, an idea that makes the spirit's eyes sparkle with hope. He reassures a worried Tia that he is just making adjustments for their mutual happiness, and tells Futamata that in exchange for the alcohol, it must not bother Tia anymore. Holding the snake, Cecil explains that rather than striking a complicated deal, simply handling the situation properly is a far less troublesome path. He presents Futamata with a choice: simply choose the path that leads to the most happiness for everyone involved, a proposition that seems to terrify a bandaged onlooker. Ultimately, Cecil's proposal is one that promises to make everyone happy, though Kuro remains worried about what will happen next. Cecil asks Tia to keep the details of this new arrangement a secret for now, explaining that since it involves others, he needs their permission before he can tell her everything. Understanding, Tia agrees to wait and offers to help in any way she can once he gets permission to share the plan. Now alone with the small snake spirit, Cecil declares that it is time for the two of them to have a serious talk about the future. A knock is heard at the door of the prince's office, where Cecil is working with his aide, Cortigain. A knight named Valdo enters, apologizing for the intrusion but claiming to have news that His Highness will want to hear. Cecil dryly points out that there's no point in knocking if one enters without waiting for a reply, a comment that Valdo laughs off good-naturedly. The narrative notes the incompatibility between the perfectionist Cortigain and the more casual Valdo, whose aristocratic manners are easily forgotten. Sensing Valdo has something to report, Cecil suggests they all take a break from their work. Valdo insists his news is not urgent and that he can wait, prompting Cecil to quip that he wishes Valdo had shown such concern before barging in. Cecil decides it will be a nice break and invites Cortigain to listen in, as the matter concerns Miss Bersha. At the mention of the Crown Princess, Cortigain's stern demeanor softens instantly as he agrees to listen carefully to the report. Cecil gets straight to the point, asking Valdo what Tia has done this time, though Valdo admits he doesn't have all the details himself. Valdo explains that lately, Tia has been going around making divine prophecies, correctly outing various men as two-timers, who then come to him to complain. Cortigain is taken aback that his cute little sister knows such a term. The phenomenon, apparently linked to the spirit, Futamata, is having a positive outcome, as the terrified men are ending their illicit affairs. This is seen as a good thing, as it prevents more people from getting hurt, a common issue among nobles who tend to play around before their political marriages. The situation has become annoying for Valdo, however, as the exposed men cannot complain to the royal couple and instead vent their frustrations to him, a mere knight. Cecil muses that a government official who wanted to speak with him yesterday likely went to Cortigain as well but was too intimidated by the aide's serious demeanor to confess his transgressions. When asked if anyone from their own kingdom has been accused, Cortigain asserts that they have no time for such dalliances because they are all busy with work. Valdo quickly adds that he certainly won't be accused, as he doesn't have a partner he gets along with as well as his fiancée, Miss Cynthia. The conversation then shifts to Cortigain, with Cecil noting that it must be difficult for him to be constantly pursued by Princess Bistona. Cortigain appears to have pushed the princess so far from his mind that he struggles to even recall her name. Valdo laments that while he appreciates the attention from admirers, it becomes difficult when they can't take no for an answer, as he can't be overtly cold to them. Cortigain counters that he is giving Princess Bistona the cold shoulder, but his dismissal seems to have no effect on her. Cecil smiles, stating that their conversation perfectly illustrates a point he was about to make. He reveals that, contrary to his own assessment, Valdo is actually quite popular with women. Unlike his more unapproachable colleagues, Valdo's accessible nature often leads to women he has helped developing crushes on him and following him around. The reason his popularity hasn't escalated into a major issue is because his fiancée, Miss Cynthia, often appears to spend time with him whenever he is being stalked, which he obliviously accepts as helpful. Valdo remarks that, strangely, his stalkers tend to disappear whenever Cynthia is around, failing to grasp that seeing him happily with his fiancée is what discourages them. It is true that there aren't many women who are truly compatible with Valdo. Cecil reflects that demonstrating a strong bond with one's partner is an effective strategy to deter unwanted advances, a tactic he employs in his own relationship with Tia. With this in mind, Cecil asks Cortigain if there is any woman on his mind, secretly hoping he will mention the maid, Milma. Cortigain flatly denies having a lover or fiancée, but Cecil presses him, suggesting that having a woman he is interested in could help keep Princess Bistona at bay. Without any prompting, Cordigane mentions that Milma has been helping him out of trouble lately, though he feels pathetic for relying on a younger woman. Cecil sees this as a positive development. Cecil reassures him that it's okay, as their supportive relationship is reciprocal. Cordigane's hesitant reaction is met with knowing glances from both Cecil and Valdo. Cecil explains that support is not always visible and credits Tia's influence for his own deepened interest in his country and its people. Valdo immediately understands, agreeing that Lady Bercia's cheerful presence and popularity are a great help to His Highness. The men agree that cooperation is essential for a good relationship, and Valdo adds that he feels at ease as long as he has Cynthia by his side. Cecil advises Cordigane to show his gratitude to Milma for her help, perhaps by giving her a gift during the sightseeing trip they took. He adds that it's not too late to invite her to dinner, especially since she seemed to have a great time with him. Cordigane recalls that he also enjoyed the shopping trip, fondly referring to her as his little sister, because she laughed so much. Cecil is privately amused by the younger sister comment but sees it as a step in the right direction. He hopes that Milma can eventually become more than just a sister figure to Cordigane, but acknowledges that the progression of their relationship is ultimately up to them. Cecil encourages the worried Cordigane to express both his gratitude and his apologies to Milma by formally asking her out, and Cordigane agrees to do so. Cordigane confesses that without Milma's help in dealing with Princess Bistona, the stress would have destroyed his stomach. Cecil is impressed that the princess has managed to break at least 2 stomachs that he knows of. Realizing they've gotten sidetracked, Cordigane decides to follow Cecil's suggestion and check on Milma to see if she has been feeling overwhelmed. As the conversation concludes, Valdo predicts he will be the one to deal with the guardian spirit, while Cecil resolves to speak with Tia to prevent any potential grudges from forming. Cecil asks for Tia's schedule and Zeno informs him she has a tea party with a diplomat's wife from the Inada nation, a place renowned for its spices. This news excites Tia with the possibility of recreating curry, and Cecil decides to go find her. 3 men walk through a large and impressive garden, with one mentioning that he had heard Tia was there. They suddenly hear a strange voice nearby and turn to see a man speaking to Miss Bercia. The man, who appears to be intentionally trying to seduce the crown princess, asks if he may kiss her beautiful hand, calling her Miss, as if she were an unmarried woman. From a distance, another figure watches the unfolding scene. Prince Cecil observes Prince Lamtak holding Tia's hand and, although he finds it unpleasant, he understands that there must be something going on behind the scenes. Tia, looking utterly shocked, points directly at Prince Lamtak and exclaims, "Little Futamida." Cecil instructs the 2-headed snake spirit, Futamida, to concentrate, reminding him that he is currently only visible to Tia. From Tia's perspective, however, the spirit is not just 2-headed but has sprouted countless snake heads from behind Lamtak, transforming from a little Futamida into a little Senjumida. Lamtak addresses her as Madame Bercia, while Cecil asks Tia if Senjumida is another word from her past life. Miss Cynthia, who is now wiping the spot on Tia's hand that Lamtak touched, asks for the meaning of Senjumida, while chiding Tia for the impolite gesture. Tia excitedly explains that Senjumita means 1,000 hands, referencing a deity from a distant island country that she was about to call Japan. Cecil clarifies that since not everyone can see Futamida, she used the other name instead. Cynthia now understands. To someone who cannot see the spirit, it would appear as though Tia had some divine prophecy that allowed her to guess things with 100% accuracy, like a cheater with 1,000 hands. Prince Lamtak, still holding her hand, asks if she is dabbling in many things here and there. He demands to know what on earth she is talking about. Cecil realizes that Lamtak has no idea why Tia is calling him Futamida, and decides it's a good time to intervene before the prince's anger is directed at his wife. Suddenly, the grinning snake spirit Futamida makes himself visible, startling Prince Lamtak. Prince Cecil smoothly steps in, taking Tia's hand and telling her he is here to pick her up. A confused Tia asks if they had promised to do something together, while the snake spirit looks away with a smile. Miss Cynthia quickly and smoothly adds that the 2 of them were supposed to enjoy a walk in the garden together, a statement Cecil finds quite blunt. Cecil then feigns surprise, remarking, "Oh, I didn't realize Prince Lamtak was here with us." A flustered Lamtak, rubbing his neck where he was just mysteriously grabbed, insists that nothing happened. Cecil innocently asks if something is wrong. Lamtak claims he simply happened to meet Her Highness Princess Bercia and they struck up a conversation, though Cecil thinks it looked more like flirting. Cecil thanks Ramtak for taking care of his wife but then dismisses him, stating he has something to discuss with him in private later and that Lamtak must be busy. He privately wonders what malicious scheme the prince was plotting. Lamtak, understanding he is being sent away, pardons himself and says he will send a messenger later to arrange a meeting. Once Lamtak is gone, Cecil turns to Tia with a radiant smile and announces it is time for a lecture, much to her dismay as she thought they were going for a walk. A worried Tia asks if she did something wrong without realizing it. Cecil reflects that she seems unaware of how widespread the rumors of her cheating prophecies have become. He instructs his guard, Zeno, to have the others escort them from a distance. He then grabs the snake spirit Futamida, informing him that he is the main reason for the upcoming lecture. After they sit down in a more private area, Cecil notes that Futamida seems to be making himself visible to Tia quite often these days. He asks Tia if she has forgotten that spirits are invisible to most people. She explains that she just thought Futamida was playing around when he would suddenly appear during her walks, so she would call out his name. Tia has a horrified realization, asking if this means she was likely seen as a strange weirdo who was talking to herself and shouting, "Little Futamida," at nothing. Cecil then points out that, while he knows she doesn't mean it that way, the name Futamida has another meaning which puzzles Tia. She is mortified to learn that she has been calling the spirit that name without even realizing its other, inappropriate connotation. Deeply embarrassed, Tia hides her face. Cecil apologizes for not pointing it out sooner, admitting he never thought she would use the name so frequently in public. Cecil then turns his attention to the startled snake spirit and says, "Now, it's your turn, right?" Futamida explains that he has been exposing unfaithful men as a way to vent his frustration over the name Tia gave him. When asked why all his targets were men, Futamida says he couldn't bring himself to get angry at his beloved Lady Bersha for giving him the name in the first place. As for Prince Lamtak, who has a harem, Futamida claims he was simply reflecting that fact out of jealousy. Cecil's expression turns cold as he asks Futamida if he doesn't think he was rather out of line for involving his wife in his personal vendetta. He then calls for Kuro, telling her to have her way with him. In the aftermath, the rumors of Tia's cheating prophecies come to an end. Prince Lamtak finds himself being avoided by most women and is now monitored more strictly by the palace, though the women who admired him for his status remain unfazed. A few days later, Cecil reflects that with the royal wedding concluded, the new couple's position is secure from Prince Lamtak's schemes. He had only intervened before because Crown Prince Araith was overwhelmed, but now he feels he can leave them to handle things. Despite this, as his aide Zeno knocks on a door, Cecil has a bad feeling that he might be dragged into another one of Lamtak's plots. The door opens gently to reveal Prince Lamtak himself, who apologizes for bothering them. Lamtak unceremoniously pushes another man aside to greet Cecil, an action that deepens Cecil's bad feeling, as Lamtak is not one to perform a servant's task like opening a door. As expected, Lamtak declares he has something important to discuss and rudely dismisses Cecil's attendants, telling them to wait outside. Cecil calmly rebukes him, stating that they are his people and have no reason to follow Lamtak's orders. He warns that Lamtak's behavior will become a problem if it continues. Lamtak frantically insists the matter is of great importance and justifies his dismissal of Cecil's men by pointing out that he, too, is alone. Cecil coldly dismisses Lamtak's gentle negotiation, stating that he won't be swayed by someone who can't even command his own people. Telling Lamtak that he clearly didn't understand the show of force from the other day, Cecil demands that his men be allowed inside. A flustered Lamtak apologizes for his lack of consideration but implores Cecil to accept his proposal. Cecil remains unimpressed, asking why he should accept anything. Lamtak confidently asserts that his proposal will benefit Cecil as well, claiming to possess exclusive knowledge. This blind confidence makes Cecil suspect that an unknown advisor must be manipulating Lamtak, feeding him the idea that Cecil would be receptive. Though Cecil's own investigation found no evidence of such a third party, a rare failure for his predictions, he decides to hear Lamtak out, expecting the beneficial matter to be worthless. Cecil agrees to listen on the condition that his own attendant is present for the discussion. Lamtak, believing only Prince Cecil will be privy to the secret, agrees to the condition. Cecil is pleased, knowing he and Zeno share a bond of trust that makes them a sealed unit. After Lamtak dismisses his own man, the private meeting is set to begin. Cecil internally notes Lamtak's carelessness in not even checking him for weapons, but decides to probe him a little without making any sloppy moves. As the other man leaves, Cecil secretly tasks him with investigating the prolific cheater, Lamtak. The man warns Cecil to be careful of his outwardly beautiful but deceptive highness. A warning Cecil accepts as Zeno stifles a laugh. Lam Tak criticizes Cecil's lack of security, but Cecil defends his dutiful guard, privately wondering if Ram Tak has been bribing the other palace guards. Once they are seated, Cecil cuts to the chase and asks Lam Tak to reveal his secret matter. Lam Tak calls Cecil impatient before pointedly asking if he's aware that he has been visiting Tia frequently. Although Cecil has somewhat calmed down since the Senjumata incident, he hasn't forgotten Lam Tak's earlier flirting and remains deeply suspicious of his sudden change in attitude. Lam Tak notes that the story of his visits must have traveled fast and decides to be direct with his proposal. He bluntly tells Cecil to hand over Princess Bersha to him. Cecil is momentarily stunned speechless before instinctively retorting that the suggestion is absolutely out of the question. He immediately regrets his impulsive outburst, having blurted out his true feelings without thinking. Lam Tak, however, misinterprets this as a predictable reaction and reveals his true aim. He believes Cecil would be interested in an opportunity to peacefully divorce his troublesome wife. Cecil realizes with a jolt that Lam Tak genuinely believes he wants a divorce, having failed to investigate beyond the superficial appearance of marital strife Cecil had projected. The full scope of Lam Tak's foolishness dawns on him. Cecil concludes that Prince Lam Tak is the very embodiment of the word shallow. Lam Tak explains his reasoning. He saw Tia with his country's guardian snake deity, an association that he believes has sunk her already rock-bottom reputation even further. He argues that while Tia may be a troublesome woman, for Alfasta, her ability to command their deity makes her a uniquely valuable asset to his nation. Lam Tak offers a proper thank you in exchange for Cecil's wife, a proposition so absurd that Cecil can only think about going home. The prince's offer includes helping Cecil conquer Yumiurb and providing him with other women, such as Duke Margan's daughter or Princess Bistona, as replacements for Tia. His grand plan involves winning Tia's heart, establishing her as a saintess who desires him, and creating a scenario for a clean separation from Cecil. He triumphantly urges Cecil to seize the opportunity to get rid of his selfish and troublesome wife and accept their true love. Having heard enough of the ludicrous plan, Cecil calmly declares that he is getting rid of him instead.